It's podcast time. Hey, y'all, it's podcast time. Almost Human at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go to the website, almost we're on there. Me and me are in the room, and Sam's joining me shortly remotely. He's out of town. But I also have a special guest of Larsen Jay checking in. Gave him a call. He had some exciting things pop up in the news and figured it was worth giving him a chat about it. So we're going to run this intro out of the way, and then we're going to do a segment with Larsen Jay, and then Sam and I are going to catch up as per usual. Almost Agreement, almostagreement.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go to the website, almostagreement.com, if you're on there. Go to your favorite podcast provider, run all those. Help us spread the word of the show. Help us share the show with your friends. Do what you can. A good, easy way to do it is to text it to somebody. It's a good way to get it to them, and that's a real suggestion from you and not some algorithmic feed or whatever. So do what you can do to support the show. We're Almost Agreement. We will be back next week as per normal. And so, yeah, anyway, like I said, me and Larsen Jay chat for a little bit, and then Sam and I will do a normal little bit after that. See how long it goes, whatever. It's good. It's a weekend. Summertime. Larsen, you with me, buddy?
Oh, yeah, I hear it.
All right, in 5, 4, 3. Okay, I got Larsen Jay coming in to chat with me and reminisce a little bit about things that I've referenced you a bunch of times, Larsen, on the show as the source of a phrase that I'm never confident that I actually got the phrase from you. So I want to start. Well, I think it was the first time we talked on my show. We were talking about infrastructure and stuff like that, and again, if I'm misattributing this, I apologize. But it was that the preemptive infrastructure is one of the hardest things for governments to do because you'll get you'll get destroyed politically for spending a bunch of money for a road to nowhere. Is that accurate to come from you?
Yeah, it's sort of the nature of it's human nature, but it also is the truth in government. If we spend a bunch of taxpayer money saying we know where the growth is going to be, let's get ahead of it and let's put infrastructure there, then everyone would say we're wasting their money. If we wait until the growth is there and the infrastructure needs to be supporting that growth, then we've waited too late. I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so I've always made the argument, make decisions early, be proactive. If you are smart and educated and you plan and you know where things are going to happen, go ahead and get ahead of it so that you're prepared for it. But that's a real private sector entrepreneurial mindset. It's not a political government mindset, which is wait until the roof is leaking and say, shouldn't we get some bids on the roof, even though we know we need a new roof for the last 5 years.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. It's one of those, I often make the argument of like, it's not education in the sense of like the education system we have, but it's we as the populace have gotten really unengaged, and it's hard to be proactive as a populace when you don't know what's going on today, let alone have put time and energy and thought into what's it going to be around here in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. We do these master plans on the regular and all these different things that we do as a government to try to get engagement for the future, but it's always the same select small group of people that's very engaged and interested. And now they are voters, which is important for the politics side of it, but the general public doesn't tend to follow these stories.
And I think it's even more maddening when you look at the economic side. We have a perfect example of this going on in Knox County right now. We all collectively own about 1,800 miles in the county part of the county that we maintain. Every road that's built in a subdivision is our road once it gets turned over. Every road that we put in is our road forever and ever and ever. We should be doing basic maintenance just to keep things at zero. We should be paving about 10% of our roads every year. So 180 miles, right? If you keep something paved at one time on a regular rotation maintenance, you pay one-time money. If you wait until that road denigrates to 3 times behind the schedule, 5 times behind the schedule, 10 times behind the schedule, and you wait 10 or 20 or 30 years when you should have done it on year one, you're going to pay 10 or 20 or 30 times the amount, because now you can't just repave it. You got to repay the potholes. You got to fix the cracks. You got to go down the substrate. You got to do the foundation underneath. And so the longer you wait, and this is just basic, preventative maintenance, the longer you wait, the worse it gets and the more expensive it gets.
Right. And the more you spend in the interim on the patch fills just to keep it functional, quote unquote.
Correct. So we paved 45 miles of road this year. 45 out of 180. Of
75 budgeted, and then that's this new budget. The new budget's got 75.
Right. That's a pipe dream. Like the new bids with the oil prices going up, like it may be 30 next year. So we just fell behind just this fiscal year. We did 45. We should have done 180. We just fell 35 miles behind. Add that to the 3,500 miles that we already knew we were behind. And when we get to that road, it will cost 10 times as much. So the economic argument is even harder, but to try to even explain that everyone in a populous community right now, what does it affect me? How does it affect me right now in my point of time? I do not care about anything beyond that. That's the voting populace right now.
I agree, and it's a frustrating part of the voting populace. And I'll say this, I'm not a journalist; I'm a pundit at best. So I could tell people who I voted for, and I did vote for you in this mayor's race, and I'm disappointed. And again, it's not part of it is what you just said, and it's not that I have any super particular closest to you that I feel like I'm going to benefit more from you or anything like that. It's that looking at the candidates objectively, I agree with the principle of we have major issues, infrastructure specific in Knox County at large that we cannot address as things stand. And
Correct.
The other two candidates to me were less willing to converse about it, let alone have a design plan and intent and how to get there, which again, I think, in the state of politics is you guys had to be very careful about the phrasing verbiage you guys used as how we're going to get there, because
well, I didn't have to be careful. I just told people the truth.
Right. Well,
and that didn't win.
but the issue being that in this, as we discussed earlier, is that it's how does this affect me now, short term, and the most important thing, and in my now I guess 6-7 years of being a policy wonk, paying attention to these kind of things, is I don't think anybody cares about politics. They care about their own bottom line.
I agree with that. And I think what's also interesting is in this last election in the primaries, over 200,000 people didn't participate. They could have voted, could have spent 10 minutes to participate, chose not to.
See, I go back and forth on if that's a good thing or not, because that's, as we said, they're
it's a terrible thing.
It is a terrible thing in principle, but I have a hard time, because again, as the pundit that I am, I advocate for uninformed people not to vote. I don't I feel like.
But 200,000 people didn't think that their elected leaders mattered, or they thought that everything was so good that it didn't matter, or there's something that 200,000 people actively said, I don't care.
Right.
Whether it's good or bad, that's not a good thing.
Right. I agree. I'm just, insofar as I do care, but I don't know what I care about or how to care about it. It's always scary to me too, because I think the uninformed voter tends towards the more hyper-politics. Because again, my 7 years of wonkiness on local politics is, I think if we walked down the street together and just knocked on doors, if I went on a door walking adventure with you, and we asked people what Knox County is supposed to do, what part of government and public service is Knox County responsible for, most people don't know what that is.
I agree.
They'll and especially I'm a county resident by a foot, but you add the layer of I'm a city resident, so I've got this other mayor and then this new mayor, and then I got a governor and a president. If we just take the executive branches of everybody's dealing with, if you ask people to kind of narrow down what any of those roles are, I don't think anybody knows what that is. And I think that is an education. That one goes into the educational system problem. We don't teach civics well.
That's why I started the junior commissioner program, and it's a small drop in an ocean, but it's 11 students and their families that every year, come and get ingrained in why does it matter and why does it matter to me locally, and civics is everything. If you don't know how this affects your bottom line, then then that's the core of it. I mean, it's beyond, are you going to raise taxes or not, which is a stupid binary, question. It's not even how things work. It's not even the role of the mayor, whatever. We can get into that. But it's, if you don't understand how investment in your company and in your community affects your bottom line, then, I can see why people wouldn't participate. But, it is civics and education. And look, maybe I'll admit this. Maybe things are so good that life is so good for over 200,000 people that they just don't care. Like, leave me alone and look until it breaks or until it affects me on my doorstep, then doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I think that. I think of that 200,000. There's an expectation that this is how it is, whatever this is. And I think, I think it came out in this primary campaign is that roads was a big conversation. Big part of the conversation, and Knox County potholes and degrading roads is just life. It's not a fixable issue anyway, so I might as well, just accept it and save some money towards a new set of tires and make sure I have an emergency tire fund.
Yeah,
and that's just where we're at. Because I think, that's part of me personally more philosophically is I don't have a lot of faith in government to do good work. But that's an aside. So part of the reason I reached out to you and I kind of forced this as a shorter time frame is that seemingly out of nowhere to me this week there was a number of the news outlets locally were covering some artist renderings of some cool, fun ideas on how to work on infrastructure here in Knoxville, Knox County. And so like my first question is this, the last kind of major project you're trying to get in before your commission run ends? Is this something that you just feel like is a general, here's some neat stuff we need to be talking about and maybe looking forward to push on to the new mayor and the new commission that comes in here in September? Like, what was the impetus of the timing of this of these ideas going public from you?
Well, look, everybody thinks that. Excuse me. Everybody thinks when you're involved with a political campaign that everything's political and everything timing wise is political. But there is a natural cycle of, just doing work as a commissioner. So I've been a commissioner for close to 8 years now. And this is a project I started working on, about a year ago, give or take, where after, 7 years, I traveling the county. Obviously, this is my community, thinking about infrastructure. I had a lot of ideas. I had a lot of, things scratched out in a notebook. And I'd also been to some other cities in Texas, Florida, and overseas where I saw infrastructure that was smarter, better, faster, more efficient. And so I sat down with Farah Seed and the team at DIA, who are really brilliant people at taking concepts and making them a reality. And so, I said, hey, look, these are a bunch of ideas I have, and how do we turn that into something visual so that I can pitch? But it's purely, it's an introduction of an idea. I don't have the ability as a commissioner to make this happen, nor would a mayor or, anyone else collectively, any one person. But these ideas have to be pushed. I have been working for years and years and years with Senator Becky Massey to try to get TDOT to put the idea of a regional bypass sort of back in the hopper after, 20 years later, we didn't do the average route, and, we can discuss that. But we have been working on that. She's the head of transportation. She's been pushing. But these are big, long, complicated discussions, and I had introduced this about 6 months ago to Senator Massey and to TDOT and at least one of our governor candidates and some other people. But I also wanted to sort of give it time to marinate and see if it got any traction, and then put it out publicly and say, we can be better. We can do better. We can think bigger than just adding a couple of toll lanes on the outside and making it more congested. We can go up. We can go down. We can find ways to bridge the gap. We can do a regional bypass.
I love the big dig, the Boston one. Cincinnati does it a little bit too, especially in the more urban portions of it. I like the idea of at least visually, you don't have that big wall of interstate running through downtown. I love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know it's an expensive
there's
option.
all kinds of opportunities, and the immediate reaction. This is the hard part, of course. The immediate reaction for so many is, "Oh my God, it'll cost too much. It'll take too long." Well, you know what? Everybody said that 20 years ago when we made a decision not to do something, and here we would have been driving it. I'm literally sitting on the side of the road right now at John Sevier Highway and Alcoa Highway. Huge, major statewide infrastructure project. It's great. Is it cause a little congestion for a while? You bet. But like, come on, man, we can do this. And so the idea is to spark, spark it, and at the same time try to bring enough awareness to influence people in TDOT, in state government, in new governors, and say, let's think about this in a little bit different way. I really believe, especially with I-40 corridor, we own the median, from Watt Road to Strawberry Plains, from downtown to north of Powell. And so why spend time acquiring right away, and then, have to go wide and then spend years doing that. Just build it in the middle and go up. So.
Yeah, no, I that's been I've had a weird little pipe dream of a light rail to use that same easement, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
as a way to not take up any more land, not have to buy up property, and with the way property is around here, because that's another talking property stuff. It's like you
could do both. You could literally put like 2 choice lanes on each side and a light rail in the middle if you wanted to. I mean, like there's all kinds of possibilities, but it comes down to, and if you wanted to make that the choice lane or the pay lane, the toll lane, fine, find a private contractor to do it. I mean, they've done it in Houston's a great example of where they've done it, and they literally build through the middle of the right of way while traffic continues today. So there's no reason we couldn't do it, but we've got to influence people and spark an idea. And so this is really just an introduction of a lot of ideas to say, while we're changing of the guard, let's think bigger and better.
I gotcha. And I mean, use the platform that you have while you have it. Makes
Correct.
sense.
Yeah.
Because I right, the policy wonk, or the political wonk in me can't help but think that this is some sort of signal for a future for you, outside of at least direct politics short term. I mean, we have a city mayor race coming up. We have other elected offices that will be in play in the short term. What's the future for Larsen Jay looking like?
I don't know right now, quite honestly. I'm a big believer in finishing strong. I told everybody I would serve as commissioner from the first day to the last day, while a lot of people abandon their posts at the end or move on to another political job and ghost everyone while they concentrate on the next thing. I'm 100% focused on being a great commissioner to the very last day, and I'm still answering constituent calls. I'm here in South Knoxville delivering some stuff for some folks. I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to serve, because I ran the first time to serve. I didn't run for a political future or political career. I just showed up because it was a void in leadership, and I thought it was needed, and so I'm going to serve in whatever capacity. I have no idea what the future holds. I have a lot of IOUs with the family, as you can imagine, after 8 years of missing some holidays and events and being, sort of tied to the post. And so I'm trying to spend a little bit of time with the family and catch up on some travel and help my boys. I got one that's doing college tours and the other one working on Eagle Scouts and all that kind of stuff. So, just trying to focus on them for a little bit and then to see. But if at the end of the day, where the community needs my help, I'll be here. I'm not really calculating much other than if there's an opportunity to serve, I'll serve. And I don't know if that's private sector, public sector. I don't have a clue what that means or when it means, but I'm open to whatever I can be helpful. Let's just say that.
I'll put a finer point question on it. Are you a city resident?
I am.
Okay. So if you were eligible to run for a city seat in the next year cycle, since we are, at least for now, staying on the odd year cycles for the city, technically.
Yeah, look, I'm eligible to run for city, county, or state, whatever. If the opportunity arises and leadership is needed and it feels like it might be possible and I can be impactful, then I wouldn't say I wouldn't consider anything, but I'm just really not like, I don't have a calculated plan. I wake up every day. I'm a guy that's almost died twice. And I honestly, I wake up every day saying, I'm alive. It's a good start. How can I be helpful? And I go do my job, whatever that looks like. So
fair enough. All right. So on a shorter term, are we going to get this this rezoning recode thing done before you leave office?
The UDO will 99% sure it will not be finished by the time I am done with office. That was a lofty goal by the mayor, but even his team is not seeing that happening. So we are continuing to be involved in it. I have a meeting literally every month about it. I put my 2 cents in, but I won't be part of the final vote. That'll have to come to the next commission. Although I would have guessed that the cake will be rather baked by that point.
It seems unlikely with the standard politics of Knox County that the likely new mayor and a couple of these new commissioners that come in will be super on board with any of the density that is currently on it.
It just depends. Honestly, it just depends on who wins the August elections, and I wouldn't count on any race bin for sure. So I mean, it could all change, but at the end of the day, the county has to move forward with whoever's in office, and elections have consequences. So it'll either go one way or the other, or somewhere in between, or they'll amend it, or I'm not sure. But we do our work. I think one of the misnomers that's mentioned by some of my colleagues is like, oh, we shouldn't do anything until the next mayor. So, no, come on. Like we appoint people, we work on projects, we do things until the last day, and whoever sits in the next seat continues those on. We don't just sort of stop and wait to see who's going on to keep progress moving. We got to run a county every single day.
Right. If we were in some magical world where election day and then the day after was when the new people took over, then that'd be fine. But that's not.
Yeah, but we don't. I mean, and honestly, there's even with the election, there's like a 30-day lag before you get sworn in, and then it takes. You wouldn't even do your first vote for another 3 weeks after that. So it's not like anybody has instant. There's so much. This is a big, long, complicated work, and you talk about like educating the public on the basics of civics and government and finance. Try to educate them on land use policies and like the most dense, boring stuff you've ever seen in your life. And so it's really long and arduous and hard work, but it's it's good and worthy work. You just have to press on and keep the ball. Just try to do a little bit more and keep the ball moving. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those, like, again, going back to the why I chose you as my mayoral pick is that this growth question is really fascinating to me, because when I was a young and dumb wonk 6 years ago that didn't really understand much, I used to articulate I guess we technically do with elections, and this one being a good example of what do we want to be as a county? How do we want to, do we want to lean into the growth and try to make it as painless and productive and easy as possible? And then, or do we not want it? And it seems to me, from elections at least, that as a county, at least as a portion of the county who bothers to vote, growth is not a public wish.
Yeah, what's interesting is I equate it to the floodwaters. The floods are coming at some point if you live in a floodplain. You can decide to ignore it, and that has consequences. You can decide to channel that water around your house, use it, harness it. You can decide to use it as a dam and get electricity out of it and economic growth and da-da-da-da. It's coming whether you want it to or not. And I'm sorry, there is no moat around Knox County. There's no drawbridge. There's no ability to say, right, we're all done now.
Because that's always one of my questions when I talk to people. It's like, what tools do you think, and the general question, not to you, but you can answer this too, is like, what tools do you think that a county commission and mayor's office has to stop growth?
None.
The only real tools.
No. The only one I could say is you could stop. The ripple effect is massive, but a county commission could stop approving development and zoning changes, and you will see your prices rise. Loudoun County did that a couple years ago. They put a moratorium on, certain kinds of housing stock. And now median house price in Loudoun County is higher than anywhere in all of East Tennessee. and they're pricing not only new people out of coming to Loudoun County, but the people that are living there are having to move because they can't afford it. And so it has a consequence. It has a downstream consequence. But that's about it. Like,
Right.
people are going to go where people want to go, and they want to go where jobs are, where opportunity is, where a good life is. And so if you start, there's only so many dials on the gauge, and if you start messing with one dial, then you get the other. I mean, look, we are the third largest county in the state of Tennessee. That is not going to stop because of an election. People, if there are jobs here, if the economy's good, and if there's opportunity, and we have a great anchor with the University of Tennessee, and we have great companies, and we have Oak Ridge, I mean, like, it is a growth area. We are a metropolitan area, and that, you know, Cedar Bluff was a goat pasture 30 years ago. Okay, like, everybody still goes and has drinks and coffee and goes to May's event, and, you know, like, they utilize it. And so the idea that growth is going to stop because, you know, of an election is nonsense.
Well, I think, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, I think there's, you know, planning and zoning permissions would be one of the tools to slow growth, which the consequence is going to be housing gets ridiculously expensive. The other one is you raise taxes because people hate paying taxes. Yeah,
but we're 76th lowest in the state. So,
but you gotta, but you gotta follow up your raising of taxes without increasing services. Because I think if you raise taxes and did better, people would still want to be here. But if you raise taxes and things still just are kind of like meh, that's, you know, and sure, great.
Or if you didn't raise taxes and the services went down and things started to get worse, then like, I always look at this as you either have a growing business or a dying business.
Right.
And look, you're a business owner. If you held status quo and you didn't want imagine saying, I don't want any more customers. I'm good. Like, nobody does that.
Even if you say that and say I'm good, it's, well, the cost of doing business goes up year in and year out. And
but you're going to not raise your price either.
Right. You've got to either raise price or raise your customer count or both to stay viable. And I 100% agree with that in the business side of it. And I think it's accurate in the political conversation too. I think it's one of those. It's an educational issue, and it's like because I always joke about it. It's like, you know, my dream house is like 100 acres out on a mountaintop somewhere. Or even whatever, and that doesn't exist in Knox County, and so, you know, I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to be able to manipulate how Knox County grows to give me my option. It's I want an option that isn't this, so I go to where this option is, not try to change this option to what I want it to be.
Well, what's always funny too is I do get a lot of constituent calls. I try to answer everyone I can and emails, and you know, a majority, I would say a majority, at least half of them are from people that have moved here in the last 5 to 10 years and are complaining about, you know, the thing that they're causing. Like, I just got a phone the other day from a woman who, you know, bought a house in Hardin Valley and built a house and moved here from Virginia or New Jersey or something. And she's complaining about the road and the traffic and whatever. And I'm like, but you are the problem that you're complaining to me about. Like, what mechanism do you want me to do to say you're the last one in?
Right.
That's where we get into property rights and we get into free movement of people and goods and services.
Right, like, which the county government doesn't have the right to stop.
Correct. Like, a definition of a land conservationist is somebody who just built their house, you know? So.
Well, and it's one of those like cliche terms that gets thrown around in campaigns is like this smart growth thing. And it's like, it sounds good. But really,
smart growth to me is to follow the plan that you put in place, which is what we have.
Right, but
immediately we put it in place, and then people don't want to follow it. So
right, it's what smart growth really means when it's said in a campaign trail is that just not here.
Correct, not here. Yeah.
You know,
no, look, campaigns and politics is built on hypocrisy and NIMBYism. You know, it's good to say, but not in my backyard. And it's good for other people, but just not for me. Like, I mean, look, this is what politics has gotten to now. I can promise you anything, and regardless of what I do, you know, my goal is to not actually maybe deliver on that. It's to win this election. And I think one of the things that, as I wrap up my second term on commission, is the people who I would call the most extreme on both sides, both parties, their goal is to win the election and to prove a point. It's not to govern. very little focus is actually on governing. And most of those people are one-term people because they get there and they realize, wow, this stink. Like, this is hard. You gotta call people. You gotta go to meetings. You gotta represent your constituents. You gotta work on stuff. Like, it's a lot of work. And so they love winning the election, but they maybe proven a point on one or two pieces of legislation, and then they usually scoot out and you start all over.
Right. One of my favorite other little things that I've in talking to people doing the show was when Matt Shears was the county Democratic Party chair. He said he loved working with candidates that were bad campaigners because usually they were the ones that actually were good governors.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they didn't have the personality and such is a little different from, being able to put on a show versus going out and doing the work.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a
profound
thing to say.
Elections have consequences, and people will, they get exactly what they choose. And so, in some ways you can't fault that because
sure,
if it was bad enough or good enough, then they would choose something else. And so
I'm a fan. One of the things that I advocate for when I talk to my state legislators is we need to rework the recall process. It's a little too daunting for the public to say, okay, you know what, we made a bad choice on this one. Let's unring that bell. Because I think it would change the way the original campaign works if you have some actual fear of not getting to finish a term, because there is a way for the populace to get you out of there before your term ends. And I think it would be a powerful change to the way we govern, but nobody in the state wants that either. So,
well, of course, why would anybody in power ever give you a tool to take them out of power?
Yeah.
So
right. A power given is a power granted, and it never comes back. Yeah,
correct. So
it is the fun way of things. I think, like I said, I think I'm I've been in Knox County since the '90s, not my entire life, but I would call myself close enough to born and bred here, and I'm concerned. Like I'm just concerned. I'm concerned in the sense that we're putting ourselves on a path that is going to be longer term consequences, and I find it, I don't know. I find it concerning. I think I'm not afraid in the sense that I'm going to get kicked out of town or anything like that, but I'm afraid in the sense that, I'm lucky my kids are on the tail end, so I can get my kids out of the school system before it gets any worse than it already is. I got super lucky in the timing of when I bought my house, and so when I finally decided to leave this place, I'm going to make a small fortune off of selling this place, and I guess I'm in good shape to make that even better as things progress. But I think Knoxville's on the cusp of Knoxville could be on the cusp of being a great southern city, and I think we're handicapping ourselves especially from the county side, but between the confluences of the three governments that we deal with here, I'm a little worried about our general future.
Well, and I think what you just summed up is the general populace of I'm mildly concerned. But you just listed 5 things that personally benefit you, and so things are good for you. So you're mildly concerned, but as long as things are good for me, I'm going to stay on the same path.
Yeah, but
that's who voted. That's who
right.
votes.
I think for a lot of people, some of those points I just made are rhetoric and not real to them, though. I think a lot of people I support public schools. No, you don't. You never did. You never will. It's just I always think it's funny. It's one of my biggest complaints on local politics is when a mayor's candidate or a commissioner starts talking about schools, and it's all you do is say okay to the budget. But I don't fault the campaign for saying that because that's what people want to hear, and most people don't understand that that's not really in the job description of a commissioner or a mayor for that matter. Most people don't know that, and so they want people that say they care about schools, but when that same person comes back to them and is like, hey, we need to up the budget for the schools, the only way we're going to do that is with a tax increase. I don't really care about schools that much. They won't say that out loud, but that's their actual thinking. Like I said, I think that the
that's why I think that the schools ought to have direct taxing authority, because then their school board members would be accountable to the people, not just yell at commission if we don't give them the money that they require. I actually think the school board ought to be an independent body with it independently elected, just like they're elected now, and they ought to pass their own budget, and they ought to have their own taxing authority, and they vote on their own budget, which has a tax price to it, and that goes on your tax bill.
That's interesting. I don't hate that idea. I'll have to think about that some more. I mean, the whole funding of the school system's a wonky mess anyway, with the way the state formula and what the state kicks in versus what the local has to match by law.
But imagine being an elected official that virtually has no consequence except for they don't even have term limits. So you pass a budget every year and you pat yourself on the back, and then county commission is required to fund it. Period. Like, what's the consequence?
Right.
To the taxpayer. So I mean that's a whole nother, potential idea. But look, I mean, back to your question before of, this is my community. I've been here 32 years now. I'm not going anywhere. And, there are lots of big ideas, just like Knox Connect. And there are ways that we can be better. There are ways that we can do it better and smarter. It requires leadership. It requires risk. And if this community, no matter what jurisdiction you're in, is run by people who put their head in the sand and say, I'll never do anything, and don't take any bold vision, then that's fine. But the community should expect exactly what it has today or worse.
Yeah. I mean, it seems illogical to believe otherwise at this point. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to, I don't know. Like, because again, I'm really struggling with that 200,000 people who think everything's great right now. Like, I don't buy it, because I talk to, as a business owner, specifically a retailer that goes into my locations and chats up the public about this, that, or the other, and everybody talks about everything all the time because everything's politics now. I don't like. I think most people just don't understand the way the system is actually working to actually voice their complaint correctly. Because I don't think they understand that. I would argue, like I made this argument a bunch. I would argue that most county residents don't understand that the general is in August. They're going in for their state and federal primary, and
actually, you may be right. I actually ran into somebody the other day that says, "I'm really looking forward to you voting for you in August." And I was like, "Well, did you vote in the primary?" And they said no. And I said, "Well, then you missed your opportunity." And they just were sort of dumbfounded of like, "What?" I said,
I mean, I really do.
The sad part is that person is highly educated, professional, engaged, in and involved in active media, didn't have a clue.
Yeah, and I think it goes twofold for the city voters. I think city voters don't understand that they are county residents too, and they don't think that they're like, yeah, this election's going on, but it's county. I'm in the city, and it's like, well, yes, but yes, you're also in the county. And I think, and I don't know what the solution to getting that out to people is, and that's the problem.
Well, it is education. I mean, I talk to civics groups all the times, and Boy Scout groups and everybody else, and every group I talk to, I say, look, you are one of three people. You live in the county part of the county, the city part of the county, or the Farragut part of the county.
Right.
But you all live in the county.
Right.
And so figure out your bucket and, go from there. But it is education, it's engagement. But it's also, I do think is look, in general, not for everybody, of course, but in general, life is pretty good in Knox County. We have good costs of living. We have nice people. Despite what everybody says, I mean, we have traffic, but it's, 7:30 to 9:30 and, 4:30 to 6:30 every day. I mean,
I don't know, I agree that used to be true. Like the one to me that the signal to me that proved the theory of the county and city growth is my Happy Holler location to come out here to Rocky Hill to come home. I used to be down there, I'm fortunate that I don't have a particularly scheduled work day, and so my rule was I get out of there by 2:00 or so, and I can get through downtown and back out west before the traffic starts getting crazy. That stretch from 275 to 640 going west out of downtown doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter what time of day it is.
Yeah, it is filling in, but in general, like life is not dire here, and we are growing, and our university's prospering, our national lab's prospering. There's 3 jobs for every one person that wants one. Do we have some problems and challenges? Yeah. They're going to get worse. Yeah. They need leadership. Yeah. But we're also not in a dying county where nobody wants to go, and so I think about that a lot with those 200,000 people that didn't show up. Maybe it's just a-okay. Like wherever we are is a-okay, and unfortunately, I think East Tennessee suffers a little bit of from sort of inferiority complex. Like we kind of don't believe that we can do better, and that's why I was such a big proponent of the downtown stadium. That was literally the first time the city and the county had dreamed of anything bigger than itself since the World's Fair. Like, let's try something new and bring some economic vitality to a blighted area. Like, that's a great thing, but we don't think like that very often. So, we're very risk adverse, and sometimes status quo is a-okay. And that's just sort of there's a cultural side to this that is far different than the political side and far different than the business side. And I'm an optimist, and I don't really subscribe to that, or I don't want to be like that. But it is the reality of things to some extent.
Yeah, I could agree with you on most of those points. And I think another one that's interesting that I don't think a lot of people, I don't know, maybe I'm the weird one on this one. I have a degree. I went to University of Tennessee. I love my balls. Don't get me wrong, but I always compare, like, because I grew up the very beginning of my life, and my up till I was a freshman in high school, I lived in Wisconsin, and like Madison, Wisconsin is University of Wisconsin-Madison and the state capital. That's it.
Right.
It's a college town with a state capital in it. Go to Athens, Georgia. It's a college town, period. But then you go to Atlanta, and you've got two decent-sized universities or state or colleges or whatever, as well as a bunch of little small whatever's in that city. And you wouldn't know it if you didn't, other than running into Georgia Tech's football stadium, you don't know you're on Georgia Tech's campus. It's just part of downtown. Yeah. And I think I think Knoxville's in this weird spot where we're like a 50-50 mix, where we are a huge university, the flagship of the state, very big deal on the economic side of employment and all that kind of stuff. But it's also, we actually are our own city, separate and above. Like I've had issues with the city, like my special event stuff. There's no option to do anything on a home game weekend in Knoxville still.
No.
Like if it's not directly inside that stadium, the city shuts down otherwise. And I feel like we're passing that point now, especially in population, but just in general culture. Like, and I'm so scared of UT's continual expansion and what that's going to mean for the city and county long term, as the state, for lack of a better way to say it, keeps gobbling up property. Just in the economics of it, it's like what are those of us who own private property in the county going to have to end up paying in taxes to keep the function alive, that UT has eaten up so much private property? Like all the Southside project, as UT starts eating up the south side of the river, how much revenue is that going to take out of budgets over time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not as, it's probably a much bigger conversation. I'm not as worried about it as you are. I think of every person that's employed at the university and where they live and what they spend, every person that visits, every student that's here and what they spend and what they're doing. I think that there's probably, it's a conversation to be had, but at the end of the day, like, they are a massive part of our community because they're a massive part of our community. And I think that the economic drivers of that far outweigh, some of the long-term, consequences of land. I think the one issue is, where do you use the land and what is it used for, and how much do we focus on density? And as you and I've had many conversations before of, like, we don't utilize the density that we have in a way that really feels like a world-class city. We still have massive sections of this community that are owned by one person that it's, going to sit blighted for another 20, 30 years until they die. And so we're not really sort of filling in and utilizing the space. But I don't know. We could talk about that all day.
Sure. And I think another thing from your campaign that's in the same vein is, I think, the amount of property that the city and county own, and where they're located and what they're worth in the private sector versus what value they have to the government sector. Because that Sears building there in the holler, I can't wait for you guys to get that off the private or off the public books and onto the private books, because
maybe one day.
I was hoping you get it done before you're gone.
Sorry, I don't have that lever to pull in the time it's needed, but
like,
yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity for us to skinny down and focus on, what I would always generalize as our 5 core services and not be, but you know, everybody's a fiscal conservative until you touch their budget. It happens every election cycle. Everybody's in a fee office talks about how being efficient and effective. And then, if you start to pick away at it, they're like, yeah, don't pay attention. I need these other 20 people that are my friends to work for the county. Everybody's loves the idea of selling assets until you actually try to do it. And then it gets really squirrely. I mean, I argued, why is Knox County in the golf course business? We are net loss around $300,000 of your money every year to run Three Ridges Golf Course. Like, why? People gripe about data centers using water. Golf course uses like way more. Like, so why is that a part of functional government? I don't know, because we have employees out there and a bunch of people like to play golf. This is the practical part of governing and being a decision based on smart business versus just plain old politics. And, plain old politics in a lot of cases wins.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I'll close on some. We'll close on some more short-term.
So happy stuff.
No, not the happy stuff. When are we going to get? When are we going to get his name off the juvenile detention center?
I would expect that probably will happen naturally.
Because I was thinking maybe in settlement for his attempted lawsuit. I don't know if it's still going or not.
Here's the thing: when we were going through the the juvenile detention center transition and governance, I chaired that board. And one of the things I asked is, I want all the governing documents. I want all the founding documents. I want to know how we started this thing. And one of the things that was really interesting is I said, well, show me the resolution or the ordinance or the whatever that named this the Richard Bean Center. No, we couldn't find it. We asked the law library. We asked the commission library. We went to the archives. We can find no official act that named it the Bean Center.
So he just put it on himself because he was there?
Yeah, or his board did or something. So the original charter is how it's being operated as now. It's the East Tennessee Regional Juvenile Detention Center. That is the charter. That's how it was founded. That's the plaque on the wall when it was built. And that's where we are today. And, again, it is run by by Judge Irwin at this point, with support from Knox County. And my suggestion as I transitioned off that board was, get through all the process, get your new board in place, get everything stable and functional. And it's really close to that now. And state has some funding to help with some of the capital needs that's coming through. And then sometime over the summer, just do a renovation and, clean up and repaint the outside and take the names off and move on.
Well, I'll happily volunteer the hammer work to knock his name off that building. I was going to say, just take it off and give it to him, and that's your settlement. Just be like, congratulations.
I think it's just going to naturally happen. I think it's appropriate to not be named after him. So, I mean,
I think it should be as ceremoniously disrespectful as possible when we do take it off the side of that building. I think it's I joke often that it's sad to me that 9 times out of 10 when Knox County gets any national coverage, it's never good.
Yeah.
And that's a national story. The Roots band was a national story. Any of the recent history that made a national story for us, I'm always a little bit embarrassed to say I'm from Knoxville when I'm talking to friends about it.
I can understand that.
I'm not embarrassed. I love this town, and I want to see this town succeed. And that's what gets frustrating about it. It's like I feel like like I said earlier, I really feel like we're on the precipice of what could be next, and I'm scared to death that the choice is going to be the wrong direction.
Well, me too, honestly, and I thought that this election was an opportunity to think bigger, think more, with more opportunity ahead, and to try to be better. But it turned out to be we are an election of we are very happy with the status quo, and that is exactly where we want to keep it. And so,
well, see, but I got to disagree with you a little bit because the status quo would have been. I don't know who it would have been because none of the three of you guys would have been status quo because Jacobs is a no tax with growth guy, and you were the only growth candidate with the at least open-mindedness to accept that a tax increase might be necessary. So we didn't have a status quo candidate when I mean, I guess in the
I guess, the worst than status quo is going to be the opposite.
Right. I'm just saying, in the very broad stroke of the who's...
It's going to be a no tax, no growth, no development platform.
Which is going to be... Which, right, again, I don't... I mean, I you know, after Debbie's showing against Jacobs in the midterm, or in the incumbency one for Jacobs, like there's theoretical hope that a Democrat might make a real run, but I know, like, you know, I've met Bo a couple times now, and he seems like a pretty smart dude, and I think he's, you know, he does not have, to me so far at least, he does not have the presentation skills of that may be necessary to run a solid campaign. I think he's a smart dude. I just don't think he's as gifted in front of the camera and on the microphone as some others are.
Yeah, well, it's gonna look. It's all comes down to who to turn out and who gets engaged. And you know, when I was elected, and this is, you know, obviously some of the was reported. You know, I've been critical of the Republican Party here because I came on the commission and we were 10-1 and we're 8-3 and heading towards 7-4 in my opinion. And you know, at which. It, again, is the will of the people, but at the same time, you know, we were all elected in the general, Mayor Jacobs, Sheriff Spangler, myself, others, 65-35 in the general, and 4 years later, against a fairly weak field, it was 55-45, dropped 10 points in 4 years. So drop 10 more points in 4 years, and you're the other direction. So I think that this community doesn't and its core is not on the guardrails of politics, the far rights or the far lefts. Most of us are you know, fairly practical people that just want to, you know, do a little bit better every day and work hard. But you know, I think that's to be seen. It all comes down to engagement. It all comes down to you know, who actually shows up. And 200,000 people didn't show up the first time. How many won't show up this time?
A little bit less, but I would say it's a solid 150 to 175. You know, like just if previous elections say anything, it'll be more, but not a ton. Which is disappointing. You know, just is.
It'll be interesting, regardless.
All right. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I was just like I was super into seeing these drawings because I think it's super neat, and I think it's stuff that should be more.
Well, thank
part
you.
of
I mean, I am very proud of it. You know, it's a spark of an idea, and that's it. It's a proposal. I'm going to do everything I can to get in front of you know, governor candidates and state officials and put it out there and say, here's an idea. And if I have other ideas, I'll do my best to propose them too. And
because I think that's another one we have. That the city part at least has, and the county for some measure too, and we enjoy it in the outdoor rec sports and stuff like that. But I think the downtown portion of the river is highly underutilized.
100%.
I think it's such an asset. I guess historically it wasn't, because it used to be gross and you wanted to be further away from it. But now that we have cleaner waterways and stuff like that, that it's such an asset that we don't get used, that doesn't get used. It doesn't even feel like it's part of it. To me, it feels like a wall against the south side. That's all it really is. It just keeps the south side out of being part of the city of Knoxville proper.
Yeah, I think we have lots of opportunity. It's a matter of if we're willing to take the risk and go forward with the opportunity. And look, it can be done. I am an optimist, and we do get frustrated. But I look back at 8 years of great work on commission. I'm proud of you know, 100 accomplishments that I can look back on, big and small, that say this made a big difference, and it moved the ball a little bit forward. And I would hope that this community would continue to connect with folks and support people that are willing to think a little bit differently. It is really easy to be a critic. I mean, those who can't, you know, usually criticize. And the mob is real, but the mob is online and on social media. And I challenge anybody who sits there and just complains every day. I used to ask this question every single day. Okay, what do you propose we do to make it different? And, you know, most people shut up pretty quickly and don't want to engage. And that's fine. That's, you know, human nature. But I would challenge you, I would challenge your audience and anyone else to say, if you have a complaint, what do you suggest we do, and how would you be part of that solution? It could be something really small of, you know, somebody said, well, there's all this litter on my road. And I would ask, have you taken a garbage bag and gone and picked it up? Well, no, that's somebody else's job. No, it's yours too. Like, like we all have to sort of collectively decide we're in this or we're not.
Right.
And,
or, accept the fact that if you want somebody else to do it, if it's somebody else's job, somebody's got to pay them.
Yeah. And so, look, we have great opportunity. We have great potential for this community. We have to embrace it and harness it. And maybe it has to get worse before it gets better. I don't know. But maybe it'll be great, and I'm naive, and I'll go find, another way to help. I don't pretend to know it all. But I'm going to show up and keep working hard. And there's plenty of people that gripe and moan. That's fine. You go be you. In the meantime, I got work to do. So.
Well, I'll let you get back to that work. I appreciate you. I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years, and I look forward to complaining about it a lot. But I will keep your advice in the back pocket, because it's fair that if I'm going to complain, I can offer an alternative at least. So.
Well, look, I appreciate the opportunity to have a good conversation. We can do better. We have an opportunity to make Knoxville one of those great world-class cities. We just got to lean in and find more people like us that are willing to take the risk and do it. So I look forward to the future dialogue, and I'm not going anywhere.
All right,
so.
I'll chat with you soon. Thanks, buddy.
See you, man.
Bye-bye. All right, and thanks to Larsen for calling in and chatting a little bit. Sam's in the room. Well, not in the room. He's also calling in a little bit. It's a phone-in day. It's Friday. It's summer. Yeah. Let's have a good time. What's new? What's exciting? What's happening with you?
Oh, out the beach.
At the beach. See, I knew one day he would answer with something. Finally get an actual answer that there's something going on. And now I'm getting an incoming phone call, and it's going to make stupid beeping noises at us, and I can't make it stop. There we go. So down by the beach, what are you doing down by the beach?
Oh, I got family graduating.
That's what I was trying to remember. I was telling the missus, but I couldn't remember if it was a graduation or some other. It's your big sister, your older sister, or your younger sister's kid?
Older sister.
Older sister's oldest kid?
Yeah.
So it's the first of the whole...
youngest kid. Then her oldest kid, his birthday was today.
Oh, so it's a double up. I get it. Nice. That's handy.
Yeah.
So would you say the North Carolina beach area, somewhere in there, in that tiny beach that's on the edge of the East Coast there?
Yeah.
Well, all right. How was the drive out there? Did you go through the 40 bypass or the 40 debacle and busted roads, or did you go around?
Yeah, the lady that talks to you on Apple sent us up to Johnson City or Kingsport, whatever. Come back down. So I wasn't thinking about it till we got really close to Raleigh, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, "We're coming in like right before the first Stanley Cup final game."
Yeah, did you watch any of that last night?
Caught. I think we were able to catch caught the last 15 minutes of the third period, and then
overtime. Right, which is all you needed to catch. It's a
real tight series.
Well, it was game 2. Well, it's now 1-1. But
actually, when we turned it on, Vegas was up 2-0.
Yeah, that's pretty much when I started.
I wasn't very hopeful. I was like, well, they could score 2 and come back, and sure enough, they tied it up.
And then they took the lead, and then it was a late goal by Vegas to send it to overtime.
Ah, that's right. Yeah.
And that late goal by Vegas was because Carolina had challenged something and lost, and gave Vegas the power play on the time of the game.
It was the other way around.
What? And that was the overtime goal? I knew there was something about a challenge loss.
The overtime goal, I think, was on a power play, but I think that was for tripping.
Gotcha.
But Vegas challenged I guess what would have been a goal for Vegas, but they waved it off for goaltender interference. It was one of the things I didn't realize. I always thought you play until the whistle is kind of the typical thing.
Right.
But whoever does the broadcast, they've got their ex-official guy that can kind of talk about different rules and whatnot. I can't remember exactly. There was an expectation to blow the whistle, something like that was what they called it.
That's stupid.
Because when they did the actual real time kind of replay, the goal did go, or the puck did go in before the whistle was blown. But I guess the official was getting ready to. But the Vegas player did kind of use a stick to kind of shove it underneath the goalie, who was sprawled out on his belly, and kind of push it into the goal. But Vegas challenged that there was no goaltender interference, and that's when it was when Carolina either went up or tied it. Might have been when they went up on that. Yeah, and then I think Vegas tied it up right before. like a minute before the end of the game, something like that.
That was crazy.
What I've seen, it's been a good series.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, that's good stuff. I don't care how you slice it. You get that late in the game, and
it's good hockey.
Yeah, it's good hockey. Ain't mad at all. So, all right. So down to business. The highlights of the week, county budget hearing, I don't really care about that much. It's the same old stuff. Actually, there was some interesting, whatever, as far as coming out of our mayoral campaigns for the primaries. The county solid waste department, who's the contract with whomever that picks up the waste from the different service centers, which is basically, our remote dumps, because you don't have to drive all the way to the dump to take stuff to the dump, right? So, like, I used to regularly use a couple of them when I was doing the other day job, because I would throw stuff in the back of my truck, and whichever one I drove by that day because I was working, I would go in. So there's one in Carnes, and there's the one out there on in the Hardin Valley level, between like the 40 Pillissippi wedge up towards Level Road, the threads that place the dump that's over there. So there's the contract for the company that picks it up there and takes it to the proper dump up in Anderson County or whatever. That contract has doubled, and partially because of inflationary issues and gas prices and blah 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 blah. But the other big part of it is that it's just they're having to service more and more often because the population growth and there's more people dumping stuff there and blah 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 blah. And so they had to add. I think that contract, the new contract, added $1.2 million to that subset of the budget. And to make that room up, the Mayor Jacobs took $600,000 of it or so out of county engineering and roads department. Guess what they do?
Appealed for loss of funds.
No, I'm just saying, guess what county roads does on a regular basis? They just, they get the budget they get that the mayor gives them. They obviously ask for more than they're getting. But the joke here is that they are the ones that pave the roads. And I remember the mayors telling us in their campaigns, we're going to fix the roads. It's like, well, you just lost a little over $500,000 in budget to them so that we could get our trash out of here.
What you going to do about it?
Right. And so
smack talk me. I don't care. I'm gone.
Right, so Jacobs didn't make any of these promises or talk about any of these things, and I don't recall him roads and infrastructure being his thing. And his thing was always any of these improvements we're going to need to get done are going to get done by the growth in revenues because of the growth, and so that was always the way he tried to pay for it. And so the problem that I see moving forward in this, for our Betsy Henderson at least, is, well, you promised not to raise taxes. You think you're going to find some waste somewhere. No pun intended, since we're talking about solid waste management right now. But, you think you're going to find some waste somewhere. Are you going to find $500,000 of waste just to get the roads budget back to where it was the year before this year? Probably not. And at current pace, the 10%, there's 1,500 miles of road in Knox County. They would like to do 150 a year. They're currently budgeted for about 75 miles a year. Over the last handful of years, they're averaging less than 50.
I remember Larsen mentioning that.
Right, and so if you're like, and so again, this is just math, people. This isn't me trying to stank on anybody other than campaign games that people play. The math here is that even less than 35 or less than 50 miles of roads will get paved in this next budget cycle, which means the first budget cycle of the next mayor, to stay at par with its current level, is going to have to find more money for roads than exists as is. And they're going to have to take it out of somewhere. And given the solid waste situation, I don't know that you could take it out of there. Like shut down a couple of the service centers and save some money. Yeah, I guess, but it's not going to be $500,000.
Yeah, I wonder. So I'm assuming that budget also goes into essentially city garbage pickup, which I wonder how much. I'm assuming most of the Knoxville growth has been in the county, not necessarily in city limits.
No, it's separated. No, it's county. A county road's a county road. A city road's a city road. A state road is in the county or the city.
I'm mixing up city budget and county budget.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the county budget does not include of the 1,500 miles of county roads.
Removal, right.
But I was just saying, on the 1,500 miles of county roads referenced, when we're talking about roads that the county is responsible for, that 1,500 miles is not a state road. It's not an interstate. it's not a state highway, and it's not a city road. So like Gay Street proper, county's never going to spend $1 fixing Gay Street proper.
Right.
Because the totality of Gay Street until it terminates and changes names, like where does it change names? Gay Street goes up and turns into Broadway? No. Henley turns into Broadway. Gay Street terminates right there in Emery Place, so it doesn't even get out of it barely gets out of downtown before it ends, and it just ceases to exist. So
right there, Regas.
Yeah, well, yeah, a little past Regas at the just under the interstate, and where Central and Broadway intersect.
Yeah,
just inside there, Gay Street ends in a little business corridor called Emery Place. So anyway, long story short, the budgetary conversation for the incoming mayor, like, and I don't know, like, I mean, you know, if I get the chance to talk to Betsy, this is one of those, you know, help me understand how you are going to make up what you just got taken away from in roads budget. You're not going to fix the roads that aren't getting fixed without new money. Where are you going to find the new money? That's always been the question, and always will be the question. I just bring all this up to say that there is a significant, at least acknowledgement from the Jacobs administration that they don't have the money to do it, and they took it or they didn't have the money to do the solid waste, and then I guess in the priorities, and I guess that's what they always say is, you know, you can say all your priorities all you want. The budget is where we actually learn what your actual priorities are. And so for Mayor Jacobs in his last budget, his priority is getting solid waste out of the city or out of county and to the dump more than it is fixing roads. So we'll see what so Betsy or Bo will inherit this budget and have to live with it for the majority of their first term. Just that's the way it works. But when they get first crack at budget, what are they going to do? I mean, I just feel like, you know, I joked with Larsen when I was talking to him. For those of you guys who already listened to it, Sam hadn't got a chance to listen to it, but I was joking with him about, I think one of the solutions we need for politics in the state of Tennessee, not that anybody's ever going to do it, we need the state of Tennessee to lower the threshold for recalls. I think we need to I think the biggest thing for local government that would be a net positive, it would be to have a threshold to call for re-election or for recalling an elected official that is attainable in the real world.
Yeah, we talked about it before. Yeah,
it's huge.
It's like 2/3 of the district, right, or the municipality.
Like for Knox County, you'd have to get more signatures, more official legal signatures on a petition than whom have voted in the last however many average elections.
Right. Just
to get it on the ballot, or just to force a ballot to then have the totality, which I guess is theoretically.
I mean, if you're able to go door to door with a petition, you're probably going to get more people than typically go to vote. But it's a large threshold. I agree. Yeah,
and I mean, you got to convince people that you got to explain to people what it is and how the process works and all that kind of stuff. Because I mean, again, and this is you guys who listen to the Larsen part of it, it's like I think, you know, like I talk about how I have problems with the school systems a lot and all the different stuff, and I like failure to educate our kids. The way this works, and I would be hard pressed to not believe it's intentional, is that we don't get taught how this thing works. I mean, I was almost 40 years old before I got even a loose understanding of it, and I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, because we started in 2018 doing this podcast.
No, not that long.
You sure? Because was it?
I thought so. It was like 2020, 2021.
Was Trump already president?
Yeah.
So it was during the Trump.
He was.
I mean, I can go back and find out for sure because we got really rolling on it. I guess it was a 2020. Was it the 2020 cycle that was the Gina Eddie Manis mess? Let's see here. Gina,
possibly. She
lost that election and then went on to run for a county commission the following cycle, which would have been 22. She just was running to re-elect in 26. So yeah, okay, you're right. So 2000 is when we started. So either way, it's been 6 years plus of trying to educate ourselves on how all this works. And I still don't understand it super well. I understand it more than average, no doubt. But, you know, like I joked with Larsen about like, let me go door knocking with you one time. And it's not going to be vote for me because you're not running for anything right now. But let's just talk to people about what the mayor's job is. Which mayor are we talking about? What the governor's job is, what they actually do.
Do you know you have two mayors depending on where you live?
Do you understand? You know, like I think that's, and again, I think it's intentional. I think that county Knox County, or counties used to have what they called a county executive. Same theoretical function as the mayor, just a different title, so that if you had incorporated cities within your county, you didn't have the confusion of having two mayors. I would still argue to death, and Larsen agrees at some level, is like he actually put an anecdote on it. I'd argue to death that most people think that they vote in county elections super regularly and don't realize that they're doing the state primary, and that's the county general. Larsen was telling a story about a guy that's a fairly smart dude or whatever, had kind of passed him, saw him in passing and stopped and chatted with him for a minute. And he's like, I can't wait to vote for you in August. Which Larsen was like, well, you kind of missed the boat. I already lost the primary. And this guy didn't understand that the primaries were back in May and that general was coming up in August. And at least according to Larsen, it's a smart dude. And so it's like, what are we doing here? And I think that's, I think
being smart and being, I guess, on top of.
Well, I mean, again, according to Larsen, he has a good diet of regular local media coverage and tries to pay attention to stuff, and still didn't know it. And to Larsen's point of the 200,000 something people that didn't vote in this primary, I would argue that a decent percentage of those are city residents who don't think they get to vote in county elections.
Possibly. I mean, I joked when we first started out that like my only indication that elections were coming up was when I started seeing political ads or political signs out on the roads. I'm like, oh, there must be something coming up.
Right. And then you got to go figure out if it's worth bothering, and most people just don't even figure out that part of it. And so, apparently this coming week, which there's no real news on it other than the state GOP picked it up because I think they're obliged by bylaws. The Sheriff Davis's request to throw out the primary will be on this upcoming.
Yeah, I remember. I want to say when I first saw that, I guess they originally, or I guess there's just one plaintiff that was really doing it, was appealing to the Knox County Election Commission. And I think Chris Davis said they were kicking it up kind of like to a state level. But now it sounds like there's the local GOP, like the county
state
GOP.
It's the same one. It's the same entity that we sat in for the Gina Eddy conversation. It's the same process
that's the state level GOP,
right? So that lady in wherever that has the dog named Trump. Yeah, that lines things more up with my recollection of history now, because I remember that was my biggest takeaway is the lady said, "Shut up, Trump," because they kept barking while they were doing their conversation. No, it wasn't shut up. It's
kind of weird that they would kick it up to a party decision. I would think it would be like kind of like a state level election.
Because it's a primary. It's not a state issue. It's not a legal issue. It's not a county issue. It's not any.
But I would think it's kind of like a weird election law type thing.
That's a Republican Party issue. Because for all intents and purposes, technically speaking, the Republican Party doesn't need to hold the primary, nor do they need to accept the results of a primary election. Like they could do this. They could do it
by law.
But yeah, the primary is like definitionally. The party primaries are
a general survey they don't have to follow.
Right. Primary parties are party primaries are a service that is paid for by the party, but it's a service that the state election commission runs on behalf of the parties. And so when the parties have when they run a primary, they're paying some sum of money to Chris Davis at the election commission. Or to Trey Hargett at the state Secretary of State, who then divvies everything out to his local administrators. And so for tech, so like right now, every time we have a primary, about a month after, give or take, is the party what do they call Brian Hornbeck's one? He's technically if I was a party member, whatever. Because there's a male and a female for each state Senate district. So state Senate District 6 is represented by Brian Hornbeck and some lady for the state party. They convene, and traditionally they convene to confirm the primary votes. But whatever name they put out after they're done, whether it was the one that got the most votes in the primary or not, is the name that's on the ballot, because the party chooses who's on the ballot. The actual election is, it's a survey. It's a good way to look at it. It's a suggestion from the public, and especially with this sheriff race, because there is no Democrat, it is the election. And so, just for functional purposes, I don't see them doing anything other than saying, like, same thing with the Gina one. I think realistically, for the comparison.
It's
I
going
think
to set a precedent, I guess. Well, not really a precedent because it's not legally binding.
I mean, it does. It does at some level in expectation from the public. If they were to, overturn a primary and install a different person than whom won the primary, even with logical reasoning like this one, I think
to install it, I think he was asking for almost like a runoff.
Well, that's what he was asking for. But because they have three options, right? They either accept the primary for how it came out and put Gibson on. They say, you know what, this argument from Davis is correct, and we believe that Davis would have won had the other candidates not been in the race, and we give it to Davis. Or they set up a special election, a special primary, basically. It wouldn't be an election per se. But they set up a special primary for Davis and Gibson to run head on. I think realistically, for their party's sake, they're not going to do that. Again, going back to the Gina one, I think that's a more obvious example of their unwillingness to do something like this, because I think the party did not like Eddie Madison there. There were some prominent Republicans who did, but I remember going into that election and there was a lot of infighting about like he shouldn't be able to run as a Republican, and there was bona fide challenges and all that kind of crap on him early before the election. And then when he won and Gina filed the complaint, the party at large did not like him. We saw it in real time as he was actually the sitting representative. Like, they hated having him there. And they didn't flip that one when the opportunity was there. And Gina was close. I mean, they were close. They were within the margin of theoretical crossover voters. That was Gina's argument. But they didn't take that one off. And it's like, if you're not going to take that one off, Gibson, as far as I've heard and seen anywhere, doesn't have any major negatives from the Republican bona fide part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And so to do that to somebody whom has no negatives like Eddie did, quote unquote, seems illogical. Like, I think it would be funny if they did, because it would both set the precedent but also not change anything. Would be like, you guys are right, Mr. Davis, you're right. We shouldn't count this primary, but we're just going to we're going to agree with you, and we're going to nullify this primary, but we're going to give the nomination to Gibson anyway. Because then they set the precedent, but Gibson still gets to keep the seat. Or keep the seat, because he's already essentially elected sheriff. I think the only time they would really do it is if it was the other way. If Amburn had won and Gibson came in second, and then the indictments start dropping. And then Gibson's like, hey, we can't have an indicted guy as sheriff. What are we doing? And the party's like, you're right. But then it would just shift down to the first person on the ballot who wasn't indicted. So if it was Amburn, JJ, Gibson, Davis, and that was the final, and then the indictments come out, it's like, all right, well, Amburn can't do it. Well, JJ can't do it either, so I guess Gibson's are still our elected sheriff. And so we'll see the actual meetings this week. But it would be crazy if they did any sort of turn any of this over. Even in the most generous version of it, to be like, okay, you know what, you're right. Let's let you guys do a quick head-to-head election. Even if, because there's time. I mean, they could do it on election day. It would technically be binding, I would think. And so
I think it would have to be before, because the general is going to have I'm assuming the general would need to have just one person from the party. Well, there's only one. There was no Democrats on there anyway, and
right, it would just be
outside of write-ins
in the sheriff's race. In the sheriff's race on the ballot on the general, you'd have a Republican primary, which you're going to have a Republican primary for state and federal offices on that ballot anyway. That will include the two sheriff's candidates, and then on the general election ballot, the sheriff's race would be just Republican. I don't know. Maybe you're right. That doesn't make any sense. They couldn't do that. But they could at least say, they could do it the week before, and that would give them enough time to get the votes tallied and do that stuff and get it out. They wouldn't have to, they're not in they wouldn't have to get it done yesterday. Well, no, they'd have to do it before the ballots are printed, which is a week or two before. Yeah, you're right. There would be in a little bit. It would have to be mid-early July, I guess, for them to do it. So there'd only be 2 or 3 weeks turnaround. It'd be maybe a month if they decided next week that we want them to run a new primary.
Davis could try to run a huge campaign of trying to appeal as a write-in.
He hasn't. He'd have to register as such, and that registration's already closed.
I didn't think about that.
And plus, there is the state of Tennessee has the sore loser law. He definitionally lost his primary. He can't re-enter the race as an independent.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
So I don't think that one would play. I wish I would have asked. There was no way to ask it without coming across kind of mean. But I kind of started thinking about asking Larsen if he wishes he would have run as an independent, like I told him to back in January.
I'm assuming he would say no.
Yeah, because he's honest about it, and he was honest about it when I told him in the first place. It was just like, yeah, but this is strategy, man. This isn't governance. This isn't, whatever. This is strategy to win the election. We need to win the election and then worry about, that's his complaint about other candidates is they'll say whatever they have to say to win the election, and then not do the things they said they were going to do, or do things they said they weren't going to do. Whatever. Moving on. Did you see the big?
Kind of speaking of that, did you see there's like 3 of the people indicted have already announced retirement, or put in for retirement from the sheriff's office?
No. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't. It's kind of. Is that an admission of guilt? Are we just saying? Okay, well, I guess they're guilty.
Maybe a little bit. Or
I mean, I feel like it is. I feel like if you didn't do anything wrong, even if you did do the thing that you're accused of, which you don't feel like you did.
I wonder if once retirement's accepted, if there were, some kind of judgment to come down, if they can strip them of their county retirement package or whatever, or if once it's agreed upon, if the county has to uphold that agreement, basically. I don't know.
I don't think your retirement pension is guaranteed, regardless of legalities. I don't know.
I mean, I could see it definitely being something they could strip away for particular reasons, like a corruption case or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question.
Je ne sais.
But I would think, I don't think, I doubt, I strongly doubt,
maybe they've been politely encouraged to.
Right,
okay,
maybe
just so we don't have to fire you. Why don't you just put in your papers?
Right, it might be like kind of a tactic to.
Or maybe they've already exceeded. The investigation's going on for a while, so I wonder if any were put on, administrative leave at some point in the past. It's been going on in late teens, maybe. Investigation, I want to say started in like 2018 or 2019, maybe. It's been going on for a while.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's if the standing rule is you go on administrative leave until, or it's a good question. I don't know. I just feel like it's.
It's cheaper for the county to pay out a little bit of retirement versus paying the regular pay on administrative leave if they were on paid administrative leave.
Yeah, but you can't fire them while things are under investigation. But once the indictments come down, we may open it back up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good questions. Good questions all.
I don't think I remember seeing any other local governance stories.
The next one for me would be the $150 million that UT just received from Jimmy and Deb, or whatever her name is.
Was it Jimmy? I thought it was Bill, and it might have been Bill and his wife. I thought a picture I saw it didn't look like it was old man Jimmy.
Well, there's two Jim. There's Jimmy Jr. There's Big Jim, the original, and then there's Jimmy and Bill. or Billy. It probably would be the
I'm pretty
correct
sure he goes by Bill.
nomenclature.
I didn't realize there was a Jim Jr. I don't think I've ever heard him ever mentioned.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look it up. I'm sure, but it's whatever. It's another gurjillion dollars.
It was going to go towards the ag department. No, it wasn't going towards their
school
business. School.
Yeah, most of it's school business. Like $100 million of it's into the school business. There's a few.
I said something else.
There's a few that go a couple other places. Let's see if I can find it, because it was Dee and Jimmy Haslam. Yeah, Jimmy and Dee Haslam have donated $130 million. Excuse me. $100 million will support students and faculty in the Haslam College of Business. The remaining $30 will be spread among faculty campus-wide, bringing the couple's lifetime giving total to $195. So,
that's a big chunk.
Because the School of Music's named after her. But that's not including monies that Big Jim is
school, right?
Right. But it's not including money that Big Jim has put in or Bill Haslam has put in their lifetimes. That's just that household's whatever. So I don't know, whatever. Apparently some of the local sports radio had heard rumor of this donation coming and were hopeful and thought it might be going to athletics, and were complaining on the radio today that it's not. Yeah, like, what are you doing?
Athletics program needs more money.
Why are you giving money to the school for education? Stupid.
Because they argue sports brings in money. It's return on investment.
And then the last big story of the week is the main big story for the last 2 weeks has been this Roots de-shelving, reshelving, and fallout since, because school board met this week, and it was a very interesting tightrope a couple of the school board candidates or school board members were trying to walk, basically arguing that the committee shouldn't have taken Roots off the shelf, but the committee does great work, and they're the right people for the job, and the state is correct in making the law this way. It's just nobody screwed up, but this was done wrong. Like, that was the argument that they were kind of that Betsy and some of them, because they don't want to criticize the state Republican Party and what the state has done from the Republican supermajority.
It's kind of like a separate board that does the review anyway. It's not anybody on the school board.
Yeah, and so I did find that out today because we talked about it last week. Is the format for when they get a book or when there's a complaint filed is the section of the complaint is taken out and printed on a piece of paper or whatever. They do tell them what the book is and what the specifics of the complaint are. So for the Roots one, it was a sadomasochistic whatever / sexual assault scene from Roots by Alex Haley, and then just the section. They're not given the rest of the book to read, or told that they're allowed to put it in context to the rest of the book if they know the rest of the book. And so it's kind of a mix of what you thought and what I thought, where I thought and realistically to me, by the way that the law is written, they should just give them the excerpt. Don't tell them what book it's from. Don't tell them anything. If you don't know what book it's from, you don't know what book it's from.
Yeah, because I can definitely skew your things. It's like, oh, this is from Hamlet. And you're like, oh, well, that's Shakespeare. We got to give that a pass.
Right. Which again goes back to my main question and concern and complaint about the whole thing is like, well, under Tennessee state law, how does any school have this still in their library? Of the other 124 books, 123 books, not counting Roots. Because there are counties in the state that have had 0 books removed. Davidson and Shelby being chief among them.
All right. Well, like you said, it doesn't really, I guess, come on their radar until someone appeals for a specific,
but even in that issue. Crazy liberal stronghold that is Nashville, there's got to be some Moms for Liberty type group that is actively engaging in this the whole Moms for Liberty book complaint, protect our children argument. Even in Nashville and Memphis, there's got to be an official chapter of Moms for Liberty that's going to school board meetings.
We could have been a pseudo test case. You're like, well, let's see if Knox County, that's kind of purplish or whatever. Let's see if it passes here before we try in Davidson County or whatever. Yeah,
but still, if that's your mindset as the parent group Moms for Liberty, then you would go after
Unicorn County or something.
one of these random super red counties that every single board member, you don't even have. The change to partisan school board elections didn't change anything because nobody cares. It's all Republicans that are running anyway. No Democrats run for seats, and if they do, they never win and get 10% of the vote if it's a good year for them.
Right. But at the same time, if it was a much smaller county, it may not have really made the news. Like you said, you saw it in like national news.
Agreed, but I'm saying I think with the way the law is written, you just got to get it through one county, and then you make the statement. It's like, hey, if it's not allowed here under the law, then it shouldn't be allowed anywhere else. Like for a more purple county like Knox County, or for the more blue counties like Nashville and Memphis or Davidson and Shelby, if you're part of the Moms for Liberty group and you want to get this book out of the libraries, well, the state has already under state law, this group inside the state has already established that this book breaks the law. You don't, you can argue about it, but it already has crossed the threshold, and so we get it out of every school in the state. Like, it just doesn't make sense that it wouldn't kind of automatically go to all schools in the state if one school board, one school board subcommittee, whatever they're called, on book removals removes it.
All right, but I wonder what the wording is of the state law if there is that kind of exception for taking the book as a whole, etc.
No, it's clear.
It is.
No, it's explicit because the two biggest complaints, like the two biggest real complaints from most of the Democrats, for lack of a better way to subgroup them, the two biggest legitimate complaints are there's no age appropriate part of the conversation. This is K through 12. It doesn't matter if this book is traditionally used in sophomore high school. We have it in high school libraries, but we don't put. I doubt Roots is in an elementary school library anywhere in the state anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. The way the law is written is that it's if it is inappropriate in our schools, period. It doesn't matter for whether it's for a 8-year-old or an 18-year-old. Like, theoretically, legal adults, they're allowed to go to war, but they can't read about this.
Just not directly from the school.
Right, not from the schools. They can go to the county library, maybe.
County library.
Maybe, or they can go to the bookstore and buy it, but they can't get it through the school system. Like, that's explicit in the law. And then secondarily explicit in the law is it's regardless of the context of the book overall. Like, if it's a scene in the book to underscore how villainous the bad guy is, who eventually gets taken down, and the moral of the story is bad people that do bad things get in trouble, doesn't matter. The bad people.
I don't think I've ever seen any like age restricted books in like a general bookstore. If they have like certain books you cannot buy unless you're a certain age.
I mean, other than porn, I don't know of anything specifically. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you get like. If you get into
like an 8-year-old, be like, oh, go see if you can buy 50 Shades of Grey.
Right. I mean, I guess it goes to the Miller test of pornography or inappropriate materials or something like that. I can't remember what it is.
I think I've heard that term. I'm not familiar with it.
It's the Miller test, which is basically like I don't remember the arguments of the test in general, but it's basically like this is how we draw the line between pornography and adult
art.
Well, not art too, but like art, literature, whatever, but adult oriented content. Because I think 50 Shades of Grey, by definition, doesn't cross over in by the Miller test. Obviously, doesn't cross over into pornography. It's literature. It's still literature, which goes under the art category, even though it does have themes of. But I don't believe, I've never read it, but my understanding of it is there's no explicit scenes of. There's implied scenes of the different things that Mr. Grey is into, and that she's not sure about, and blah 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 blah. But none of the scenes are. Oh, and then he got then tied me to the post and clamped my nipples and hog-tied my ankles together and beat me mercilessly for 20 minutes before having sex and blah 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 whatever. Like I don't believe any of that is in the actual book where it crosses the line. And I'm sure that's part of the strategy when you're writing a book that's on the edge is you make sure you know what the Miller test is and know how to make sure it doesn't cross the line if you want to keep it into the regular shelves of the bookstore instead of the erotica section. But I don't know. Anyway, and so the school board did, and Cat Bike, my rep, Go Cat. I'm loving it. She immediately after they voted to basically the main thing in school board was they were voting to basically write a letter to the state and say, hey, let's reconsider some of the language here to make this more logical and reasonable and a better way for us to be able to administer this on the local level. Let's please include age appropriateness by grade level so that, we're not confused. We're not saying a book for a 18-year-old is approved for an 8-year-old, but we're also not put in a situation where 18-year-olds only get to get books from the library that are good for 8-year-olds. So give us some leeway on where it sits in the different libraries. Even they didn't say it this way, but to me, just at least bracket it by school. We have an elementary school appropriateness, we have a middle school appropriateness, and we have a high school appropriateness. Give us some framework to split it up by age bracket. Anyway, what they're asking for is give us the ability to split it up by age group, not groups of schools, but by grade level. Give us the ability to do it by grade level, and give us the ability to do it within the totality of the context of the book, and not just an excerpt from the book, whether it crosses the line or not. And that's what they asked for. And then Cat Bike, in her awesomeness, immediately put a proposal up to reinstate the other 124 books that have been banned, pending. Do what?
I said,
Yeah, she pending. She basically said, let's bring all those books back, pending a new critique of it under the new rules that we are asking for the state to give us. Which, I mean, logically makes total sense.
Not a bad move, yeah.
Yeah, it's right. Which apparently was a big old 2-7 vote because her and I can't remember who the other one is voted for it, and everybody, there was no discussion. We don't want to talk about it. We don't care. Just put it up for a vote. No. Okay, moving on. But still, yeah, it makes sense. We're changing the rules. Then the things that got kicked out because of the rules need to be re-looked at under the new rules. Seems reasonable. I mean, I don't know. It's not reasonable in the sense that that's not how we traditionally do things, because there are people in California who are still in jail on drug crimes for drugs that are now legal to use in California. And so there is that weirdness that we do as a society at large that is not new. I'd say at this point, most people are out or dead. There's probably not many people left that have.
An effort to at least start the question. It's like, well, if we made a misstep here, what are these other 150 books?
Right. I would disagree with it.
For this.
I agree with it in totality. To me, I don't know how many people in Tennessee prisons are in jail for possession or possession with intent to sell or drug dealing charges. But if we go legal on the drug that they got arrested for, then they should be immediately released.
Yeah, I know California, I think Colorado did it. Other states it went legal. There was it took a little bit of time, but I think
I don't know.
Part, all of them were released if it was a drug that is now considered legal.
I say that, but at the same time, it's like you did it. You did the crime, and you knew it was a crime when you did it. Just because it's not a crime anymore doesn't mean you didn't break the law when it was against the law. I don't know.
Right. For possession, maybe not necessarily like trafficking.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. It's either way. I could get behind the logic of it. It just seems. It seems ridiculous. Book banning as a practice of the state is its own complexity and seems somewhat ridiculous to me. The question is the question to me on the purely philosophical government front is there something about, we'll stick with roots because it's the prime example and it's not unimportant in the greater political conversation, but is there something in roots that frightens the powers that be, that puts their power at risk? Because that's the only logical reason you would go through all this effort. I don't buy for a second that Moms for Liberty or whomever is trying to ban these books because they think it's actually bad for children or young adults or whatever. I don't think...
We can't show a bad side of slavery. We've already tried to tell the kids it was good for them.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Job skills.
And so, the only reason, soft skills. The only reason you want to take this out of circulation is because because it threatens something about your functional power at that point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how are we as a public not smart enough to understand that if that's what they're doing, this is why they're doing it, and if they're afraid to lose power, that means that they know that they don't have a control over this that they want. That's the only way. It's the next logical step.
I think to some extent, kind of from the conservative side, that's more of like kind of on the side of like parental rights. It's like, if I want to let my child read that,
right?
Why are you taking issue with that? If I want to get it from a school that my tax dollars are going for my kid to be at.
Yeah, it's my it's my money. Let me choose what we do with it. Why would
I think to a certain extent? I mean, should be some responsibility on the parents to keep up with the hell what their kids are doing.
I agree with that.
And they can't watch them all the time, but I mean, hey, what are you reading, Jimmy? What are you reading, Sally?
I'm not just the Anarchist Cookbook, Mom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, how's that going on for you? Oh yeah, I say that. I owned a very not explicit book, but a very taboo book when I was in high school, and I don't know that my parents knew that I had it.
Right. Yeah, probably true.
I'm not sure. I'm sure they
weren't completely hands-on either.
Do what?
Yeah, but your parents were completely hands-on either.
No, they weren't, and they're certainly not the way they are this generation. I mean, I suck at being hands off with my kids, and I kind of wish I could be better at it, but I'm trying to in different ways and shapes and form. But I don't know. But again, like,
it's hard to find that happy medium.
The end of the day here is I owned and read that book, and I'm not what that book was espousing. I didn't brainwash me into a thing. It actually kind of started pushing me away from it. It was one of a couple of things that pushed me away from it, but and if there were 10 things that got me out of that mindset, that was one of them. Where there were some people that were probably 2 or 3 points of that 10 points as individuals who did more to push me away from that line of thinking than the book did. But the book certainly clarified to me that this isn't really what I want to be. So I don't regret reading it. I don't regret owning it. I still have it somewhere. I don't know where it is. I probably should get rid of it because at some point it's going to get me in trouble. I've only had it for 30 years now. No. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've had it for fucking 30 years now. This stupid kid thing, and I'm gonna end up paying for it in my 50s somehow. But I don't know. Like I said,
somewhere.
And again,
did you pay cash for it, or did you use a debit card?
Back then, it was cash. It had to have been cash.
Yeah, probably.
They weren't taking, I had a debit card back then, but they didn't take those in stores yet. It was, you had to go to the ATM and get cash to go.
Well, yeah, they did.
Did they? I don't remember. I feel like there was I feel like there was a decent period of time where it was only credit cards.
Nah, they've been taking credit cards for decades.
Credit cards, yes. But debit cards.
I mean, that's what a debit card is. All the debit cards have like a credit card processing company affiliated to it.
Yeah, but I know there's a period of time where debit cards were not taken on card readers like credit cards were. I know that.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Because even to now, you pay the stores you go and shop at pay differently. Like it costs them different whether you run it as a debit or a credit card.
Sure, yeah.
And so there's functional reasons just from the processing standpoint that I remember a period of time where you couldn't you couldn't put a debit card in a gas pump. And for a long time, debit cards didn't have my first card from First Tennessee did not have a Visa logo on it. It does now, but it didn't back then. And that was always the differentiating thing to me, as I recall it. But I don't know. That's a weird rabbit hole. But yeah, that's kind of the top local stuff that I was kind of mulling over this week. Going back to some of the Larsen stuff, since I hinted at it a few times and you haven't got to listen to it yet, and I'll just tell you about stuff. I just thought it was interesting to me that this last week in the news, all of a sudden Larsen had some real active news week. It wasn't about his campaign because that's over. It wasn't about it wasn't him pitching a fit or it wasn't him going and doing interviews, trash talking people or stuff like that. He was part of that GOP text drop that everybody got to go through and see everybody angry in the party post primary. But my point in all this is that he was in the news and it wasn't for any of that stuff. It was in the news for some policy ideas moving forward when he's basically done as a commissioner. He will continue as commissioner until the 1st of September because that's when the transition happens. But the projects that he is pitching, these are, these are the type of projects that even if he got a vote on parts of it, we wouldn't see any real active movement on something like this until, I don't know, maybe the end of Betsy, or maybe the end of the next administration, excuse me, not to assume it's Betsy, but it would be 5 years from now before we're into the whole hiring contractors phase of these things.
But if you can get something passed and already on the books and moving forward, that's
right.
Be beneficial to the county.
But these aren't those kinds, because these are the kinds that it's going to take, because both of these are state and federal involved. Well, one state and one's federally will have. One will have state involvement, has to have state involvement. One has to have federal involvement. Now, he told me that he had been working with Becky on some of this stuff. And basically, it's the interstate one. It's an alternate version of the choice lanes. Is really what he's pitching, and that does make it a little bit more viable. In that, if it is the choice lanes, which are an option if a private company wants to do it, and it would be a raised choice lane instead of a wider. It's not. We got sections of 40 going through town that are 4 lanes, 5 lanes wide each direction.
Yeah.
And the lazy way to do a choice lane is just to take one of the inside lanes and then take the inside shoulder and turn that into 2 lanes that you got to pay to be on, and keep the outside 4 lanes what they are. And so what this idea would be to basically just do a raised 4-lane interstate, 2 lanes each direction, that all the anchoring to it, all the actual ground space it takes, is the median of the existing interstate. Which I like the premise of, because that's probably the hardest thing for any of these giant municipal projects to do, is to acquire the land to do them.
So that would then take out the inside shoulder for
I don't know.
Regular.
That's I'd have to try to find one of the drawings to better articulate it, but it would probably make it a little bit smaller. Or you'd have to shift the lanes that are currently existing in a little bit to keep at least a big enough shoulder to pull off of. But still, I mean, you add 2, subtract half of 1. It's kind of a win, right? You're still plus 2, even if it's the choice lane. But again, the choice lane part is nice because then it's not tax funded. It's just the state and federal government, I guess, would have to. I guess the federal government on interstates just does funding. They don't actually do the administration. The state Department of Transportation manages, right? Is that how it works? Like TDOT manages.
So, yeah, I'm assuming they allocate funds, and then it's
right. And TDOT manages the interstates in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah,
but some significant portion of the funding comes from the federal government. So anyway, the point being is that they would need at least TDOT, if not some federal approvals for it. But it takes away adding the use of land as part of the process. You don't have to go out there and acquire easements and eminent domain on people and do all these other things to get the space you need to do it. And I'm good. Like that makes sense to me. It's logical. The only thing to me that gets confusing is, like, I don't know, when you get to the 640 split on the west side and you have that big bridge that goes over, right? Because if you're on 640 going west, but you want to go downtown, there's that big bridge that goes way over and then back down, and then you have the part coming off of west or going eastbound that goes then way down under. Like, how high are you going to have to make this overpass to clear all that? Or just even like out by Bridgewater and Gallagher and all that kind of stuff.
Like most of 40, I don't think they're, at least, kind of going through with 7540, kind of going through town and everything. I don't think there's any truck lane restrictions. Like, trucks can be in the far left lane if they wanted to.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, if you're going like if you're out there in Gallagher and Bridgewater and all that kind of stuff, where
right.
They are overpasses on 40, you now have to get another layer above them with this.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so how do you manage that part? And that's a conundrum at minimum. It's a major undertaking, but still, I would believe if somebody told me that the number one issue when you're trying to do giant municipal projects is to acquire the land to do the project on. You take that part out of the equation, and then it's just problem solving with how big you want to build and what you got to mess with. But it's all public property that you have to mess with. And that makes sense to me. The other one, which doesn't make as much sense to me, although I do agree in principle, like I think we fail miserably at the use of our beautiful river in downtown Knoxville.
Use of our what, sorry?
Our beautiful river in the middle of downtown Knoxville.
Oh.
I think the only thing that river is good for is making South Knoxville feel like a different place and not part of actual Knoxville. We don't have. There's just not enough. I like to blame UT on a lot of stuff, and that's one of the things because UT eats up of the downtown area on the river, on the north side of the river. What, half of it is UT property, adjacent at least. But Nayland Drive is a state road, by the way. I just learned that today. And so anyway, the idea Larsen's pitching down there, and this is, I don't know, I wouldn't say that these are new or unique to Larsen. There is some history of different ideas like this, but it'd basically be building a big courtyard, for lack of a better word, over Nayland Drive, right there between Henley Street and Gay Street. So basically like a giant back deck on the city-county building that overlooks the river.
Yeah.
And that the traffic would then the traffic would stay where it is underneath this big deck thing. I don't know. That one seems kind of fruitless to me. Like, I don't know how you'd get a lot of good use out of that other than more parking would be an option. But that's not the point. You know, I don't think anybody'd be happy with some big parking garage like that on the riverfront. I wouldn't be. Although maybe if we brought fireworks back,
park there, but there's parks not far from there.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I don't know what you could do exactly. I mean, you could maybe do some expansion on some of the stuff like Calhoun's. That's because Calhoun's is theoretically on the river. It's not on land, right?
I'm not sure how far the water comes up to it. No, I think it's on land.
No, I don't think it is.
Have a dock.
I don't think it is. I think it is completely over. I think it's completely over. Like, I think the actual building itself, like parking lots on ground, obviously, but I think the actual building and restaurant and all that stuff is technically on.
See, maybe their back deck. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway, but do some more
on solid footing.
Do some more stuff like that, where you'd have this pavilion coming off the city county building that goes out, and then you would come into like a deck that's a rooftop deck onto a bar restaurant that's on the river level or something like that. Would be kind of cool. Like take Calhoun's where it is and build a deck on top, and that's more service area for them, but that comes in at the level off of this pavilion, and then make more usable commercial space right there out of the riverfront. I think we need water taxis. I want to do my pedal pub, my floating pedal pub idea so bad. We just don't have a lot of use downtown. Like, I feel like we're missing out on a cool asset we have. Apparently, historically, that's part of why the city county building is where it is. Apparently, many moons ago, the river was nasty and gross and stunk, and so the people with the money and means were moving further inland off the river, and so that property where the city county building sits among some of the other ones down there were blighted and abandoned and stuff like that, and so the city had been taking them back over from tax issues because nobody wanted to live or work right down there on the river because it was stinky. Or something similar to that idea is is the history of Knoxville proper.
I don't think it was built in the 70s, maybe.
The city county, 80s. Yeah. No, this is like 18 something was when the river was gross.
Right.
Yeah, the 18 in the early 19th and the early 20th century is when people were trying to get away from there. But now that it's cleaned up and whatever, I think city, at least in city politics, and the riverfront issues, the Gay Street Bridge is an issue. They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to make some moves in that direction. But I think, I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff in the way, just like, what is that? Was that the French Broad comes in right there? What comes in just on the east side of downtown? There's First Creek. First Creek comes in down there somewhere. Second Creek comes in over where Tyson Park. That's what Second Creek that runs through Tyson Park. It's not a large whatever, so I don't think it's the French Broad. But anyway, there is maybe it's First Creek that comes in there right there under the Hall of Fame and where what's that stupid place, the steak place, Ruth's Chris. I never say it right. That it's down there But somewhere right in there, there's a creek that comes out into it, and it's really gross and messy right there for a little bit. But then you have Island Home just a little ways up. But I mean, like that's part of the thing. It's like there's, because like then once you get past the Civic and stuff like that, James White Parkway runs parallel to the river for a minute before it crosses as the bridge, but there's nothing in between. Like it's right up there on the river, and there's nothing down there that's at least not anything cool. There's a big, there's a concrete factory, not a concrete factory. There's like a brick or some sort of building materials, something right under the bridge. I don't know. Point is, we have a cool river and we don't use it. It doesn't get as much attention or love, and part of it's geology too, because of the way Knoxville sits up on the bluff. But I don't know. It's a bummer. I think we're missing out on some coolness down there. And I don't know if Larsen's solution is the solution, but it's at least part of the conversation to be had. But I don't know.
I'm not sure of a good way to I can't think of a good idea to utilize it that most people would use.
I did get confirmation, going back to the Larsen interview, that of one of my theories that of how do you stop growth, municipality wise.
That's fine. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing I said. You like the only real direct way to do it is you just I think he mentioned Lenore City or Loudoun County. I'm not sure which one had done something a few years back where basically they said no changes in zoning or density, and no new high density permits will be issued for any apartments or townhouse condominiums. Kind of dense living situations will be permitted in Loudoun County or the city, Lenore City, or whatever the specific was. That's what did exactly what it should do and would do, is that housing prices go through the roof and people start leaving because they can't afford to live there anymore, or the price is too good for them to sell their house and get the fuck out. And their downtown development or not development, but their downtown economics fell apart because nobody was living down there anymore, and blah, 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 blah. And so it's like the only actual functional thing you can do to directly stop growth is impossible. And while homeowners in the region, like myself, will be excited about it because my house will go from my newly assessed $400,000 to $1.2 million, because if you want to live in Knoxville, you have to spend ridiculous sums to buy a house here. And the only way you can buy a house in a place is to get somebody to leave the house they're in, because there are no new buildings. And I don't know. We'll see, Betsy. We'll see what ideas Betsy has to slow growth. But that's just, I don't know how else like that, and then I joked with him about, it's like, or you raise taxes really high, but keep services crappy. And I think the other one,
what?
Do what?
To keep services what?
Just don't do just double taxes, but don't do anything more than you're already doing. Right? And it's like, because at some level, people are going to automatically, myself included, and be like, no, I don't want to pay more in taxes. But if I do end up paying more in taxes, but I can see it, I can say, oh, hey, these roads are actually drivable all the time. All of the roads are drivable all the time. Hey, the trash is getting picked up and taken out to the dump. Hey, our police officers are well trained and they're doing the right things and they're not shooting people in their bedrooms and stuff like that. All these cool things that I expect my government to do. All right, I don't really like how much I'm paying in taxes, but at least the things are getting done correctly.
And so I was about to say, if you're gonna try to ask for it, there's got to be some kind of give. When the city tried to do their sales tax increase, it was like, hey, we're going to build more sidewalks, we're going to have more parks, we're going to increase roads, etc.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to discourage growth, you do the tax increase and say, no, we're not going to. We're going to do even less than we're already doing, but we're going to just take more of your money, because then people don't want to live there because they can't justify the tax expense. Again, we're trying to slow growth. We're trying to discourage people from moving here. Right. The missus has a great idea. She's actually working on a book. She's going to do a Myths and Legends. Have you ever heard that podcast? It's a great podcast.
No.
It's just this. It's just proper dork historian kind of guy. He goes and it's just literally all sorts of myths and legends from all over the world, all sorts of different cultures. Some more recent, some super ancient, of all the different gargoyles and this, that, and the other through time. And so she wants to do a East Tennessee version where it's like there's some that are like there's a There's a couple that are known ones around here, and I'm trying to think. I'm blanking out on them right now. But there's like basically there is a like an Appalachian version of a Yeti. It doesn't have the Bigfoot. It's not to Bigfoot legend status, but it's the same kind of thing. And I think it's actually out of Townsend. That's where the whole Townsend with the Bigfoot branding that comes down to Townsend. You've seen? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I've never seen that. No.
Yeah, so they do anyway. But like, it's just one of those like back in the Hill People days that people live back up there. That was one of those legends that kind of. Anyway, the point is she's going to write a book full of all those and all the scary things that are in East Tennessee to try to scare people from coming down here. Which I'm like, I agree with you, except some people are into that kind of stuff.
Discourage a good chunk, but you're going to intrigue a good number of others.
Right. Ooh, I want to go find the. And part of it's where we're trying to make up a couple too, and I'm trying to. She had some great ideas, and I can't remember any off the top of my head right now.
West Virginia's got their mop man.
Yeah, some eat your kids in the middle of the night and steals your left shoe, but only your left shoe. All sorts of fun creatures that roam East Tennessee. She wants to do a book on it, and then we'll turn it into a podcast series, and we'll be our own versions of Legends of East Tennessee. So. But then at the same time, we have the Haslam family dropping billions of dollars on the university, and I did complain at Larsen a little bit about it concerns me just in the finances. Like, I'm not going to try to argue that UT is not a net positive for Knox County and East Tennessee in general, but at some point, when does the university take so much property that the property tax burden on those of us who actually privately own our property starts to get ridiculous because there's no other private, or all the other property is state property as the university,
especially for city residents,
right?
And squeezing them out to where it's less and less people that are
right. Where
being the tax burden,
and especially because like the majority of the city's budget is from property tax. They get very little of their sales tax because they are obliged to give most of that to Knox County schools. And so, yeah, they're in like
maybe that would squeeze some of those businesses. Like, all right, I'm going to move my business out of the city and into the county. And we'll finally start getting some. That's what I've been trying businesses in the county.
I've been trying to pull the map up and trying to figure out what the closest county commercial zone is to this downtown Knoxville, and open a bar that's just smoking. Like this whole pitch is that we're just a smoking bar.
Yeah,
and see if we could drag some city residents out so they can keep smoking in bars because the city passed their stupid ordinance.
Smoke line.
Yeah, the smokehouse. Sam's Smokehouse, that's what we're going to call it. And we're not serving barbecue.
I was about to say, we're going to have to either sell barbecue or make sure we explicitly say this is not a barbecue joint. Or maybe just have a fake smoker out front.
Yeah, just all the cigarette butts go in there.
I'm already here. I might as well get something.
All the cigarette butts and ashtrays get emptied into the smoker out front, and just burn some toxic, nasty 24/7, and have a big fan that blows it into the city of Knoxville. Suck on that. Yeah, those are the things that we do with our government. That we would do if we were the government in charge of the government. Me and you. I don't know what else you got, buddy.
I don't think I saw too much else locally or even
I'm missing something
statewide.
But yeah, I mean, it's it's that time of year. The state session's over. We're in the month leading up to everything taking effect, which July is going to be tough. I am not looking forward to July. It's going to be a stressful month for me. We'll find out hopefully within the first couple weeks on how bad it's going to be and what we can do to survive as a business. We should have. I'll be more comfortable in August knowing where I stand, I guess, and see how it's really. I don't know what the public's going to do. Are they going to transition into the edibles and the stuff we're allowed to keep selling, or are they going to go find their dealer and go and just do it on the down low? I don't know. I'm hard pressed to not think it'll be a little bit of both, but is a little bit of both enough to keep my employees employed? I did write a letter to Briggs and Massey and their assistants this week, explaining one of the wrinkles that I didn't know existed. We talked about this last week, how the Knox County Health Department is telling us that we're not allowed to do a mixed THC cocktail.
Right.
To which I explained that to Briggs and Massey, and one of Briggs' assistant emailed me back with a section of the code. And I was like, no, I mean, you're correct, and we know that, but that's where it says we can't mix alcohol and THC. And we know that. And for what it's worth, we did that as a policy, even though it's not illegal for us to do right now. That's always been our policy. I'm trying to figure out who is going to educate the Knox County Health Department that they're wrong on what they're doing, so that I don't have a hiccup come July 1st, even though it's already technically wrong according to the health department. Like according to the health department, I shouldn't be doing it right now. This has nothing to do with state law.
Right.
I guess. I don't know. It's really confusing. And so, but then, and I stuck in a poke at the end of my email asking them about help navigating this particular situation. And then I was like, and just a heads up, just to keep you up to speed on where I am as a person and business interest, I have been informing all of my employees that our intent is not to lay off a single one of you. But if a job comes to your attention and you're remotely interested in it, you should take it. Because I don't know that we won't be laying you off in a month. I don't want to. It's not my intent. But the reality is the reality, and I don't want to blindside you guys with a, hey, sorry, bye. And I don't want to do that. And then I also made a poke at...
Sales were shitty this week. Don't come in next week.
Yeah. And I also made a poke at, and it's like, our attempts to make we really tried and we really wanted to do, to get on the wholesale side of this because of the way the law is written and opening it up and giving us an opportunity to move that direction. It is just downright unaffordable. It would cost us, and it's only unaffordable for reasons that make no sense. The warehouse size for us to build a building, to build a space big enough, or to obtain a space big enough to be the minimum required by the law, and the cost to make that an FDA compliant food safe place, even though the FDA doesn't count it as food, according to the health department. Again, one of the fun little narrow isms in it. But realistically, one of the parts of the statute is that you have to have $750,000 on hand at all times. You have to be able to prove to the state that you have $750,000 available to you at any time in order to get a permit to be a warehouse. And unfortunately, if the world was a different place and as we were opening businesses, we were buying the buildings, we'd be in a different, we might have been in a situation where we could have had that guarantee that says, look, we've got $1 million in assets and we can leverage those assets to get a loan at any time to cover that $750,000 that you require us to, because assets count. And so the only way I could really do that is to get either a straight loan, that I just keep a loan open and don't spend any of the money out of it, with $750,000 available to me in a signed format from my bank, which they're not going to do. Or I get a bond that'll cost me like $30,000 a year for nothing. I don't get anything for it except when and if, because I think my understanding of the reason that you have to have this guarantee is so that since the wholesaler is the principal tax collector in this new format, they're basically saying, if we think you owe us $500,000 in taxes, you have to show us that you have, even if you did something weird with the money, that you have this available, and we can take that from you instead.
That's possible.
That's the only thing I can think of. Like, what other reasoning would they? Why as a business would I need to make sure I have a certain sum of money around? And
it's not like I said. I think there was a separate requisite for like insurance policy or whatever, didn't it?
I mean, no, it's just standard.
You have to be bonded for a certain amount or whatever.
No, that's what the bond. I mean, that's the only bond that would make sense in the legal part would be the bond of the guarantee. So basically, all the bond is me paying. It's like it's just insurance. I pay a premium, and if situation dictates it, the bondholder will cover the guaranteed amount. That's more than mine, and so the bondholder doesn't care. They just don't want to ever have to pay it out. They just want to collect the $30,000 from me annually.
Yeah.
And so
they're asking for something separate. They're not saying you need to have a policy that covers you in the event of whatever.
No, I mean you have to have regular workers' comp, you have regular business insurance and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But no special insurance. It's other than to say that you have to have insurance of cash available if we say we want it. But again, the only reason I can think of that bond, it's because that's the way the liquor bond works. You have to have a bond on the liquor side. It has to be a bond. It's not even allowed to be cash available. You have to buy a bond. It was only like $10,000 because a liquor retailer, I don't know, the liquor stores might be different, but a restaurant liquor license, basically it's like, hey, if you sell a bunch of liquor and owe us a bunch of taxes, and for whatever reason something happens, like you go bankrupt or something in the middle of all that kind of stuff, we'll go to the bond company and take the tax money you owe us. It's the only thing that makes sense on why you need it. And it's like, well, I don't want to run a giant warehouse. I'm not planning on running a giant warehouse. I'm going to do a small operation. A busy month for us, we might owe $5,000.
I'm running a liquor store, not a liquor warehouse.
Right. It's like, I want to, what is not even a liquor store, liquor warehouse? Like I want to run I want to run a hemp warehouse. But just because I'm a warehouse doesn't mean I need to be Amazon big, right? I can be a small warehouse that is, niche and specialty. Like we have liquor dealers they're all huge. Don't get me wrong, but we have smaller ones that they're like, there's a brand called Advantage, and they're all wine. And they're all random wines that like wine people are into, but normal people don't like, I don't believe in Knoxville, at least, any liquor store or grocery store that has wine does business with Advantage, because Advantage doesn't have any brands that are generic, that, they don't have Barefoot or, whatever, the Boda boxes. That's not their branding. Their branding is like, they have like the hundreds and hundreds of dollars a bottle wines, like real expensive imports from Italy and real expensive imports from France, and just a bunch of like really craft, like the highest end and the quality craft wine markets and stuff like that. That's what their niche is. Now they're still huge, and so they still have the means to do all this stuff. Because the other side of it too, it's like you go to a D&V who distributes Jack Daniels in East Tennessee. They have $750,000 in product sitting in their warehouse. They probably have $1 million in just Jack Daniels, let alone all the other brands they carry. You know what I mean? So They already have this asset. This isn't something that costs them to do. They already have the assets to guarantee financial viability. And so basically the whole point of this long ass story is that I stuck in there. It's like, whether it was intentional or not, the result of this law was to make sure that only big warehouses and big wholesalers could do it. And
I could see some effort from the state level not to let someone try to skirt it and be like, oh yeah, this closet is my warehouse.
I don't see what the disadvantage is. Like, what's the downside for the state? It's harder for them to keep up with. That's what I mean. If you want to get down to it, that's all they want. There's only, I don't remember how many. It's a couple hundred liquor licenses.
I mean, with them being, I guess, since they handed it over to ABC, I can kind of see that argument from their standpoint.
I can. Yes, I can, in the sense that it's cheaper.
It's not that much different than like any other kind of like small business that's going to have to go through taxes, or small restaurant, food truck, or whatever popping up.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's like we have all these things in place for all these other mom and pops to be able to exist and play the game. Like, I own a bar restaurant and I compete against Hooters.
Right.
Like, are we going to restrict? Like that's like functionally, you're 100%. Like functionally, this is whether intentional or not. This is designed to only let big boys play the game. And so for us small players, if this same format was shifted over to just restaurant businesses, then we'd lose all our restaurants, at least all our mom and pop restaurants. We'd have Applebee's and Chili's and Hooters and a dozen other ones, but that's it. We wouldn't have Casey's Dream or whatever it is in the stadium. Well, we might, because the Boyds like them, but we wouldn't have all these little small mom and pop restaurants that we have that are the best restaurants we have in town. Don't get me wrong, Chili's is great, but these little ones and especially in Knoxville with our history in restaurants in this town, like if the same principle and law applied to restaurants, it would be terrible for the consumer. And I guess that's the point, is like the government's supposed to protect the consumer, isn't it? Like, it's not supposed to be protecting big business especially. But that's what this one does and has done. And that's why I just snuck that into it. I was just like, just to make sure, you guys did a good job protecting the big business as part of this program and the wholesale side. So congratulations. Because I'm a little bitter. I didn't say the bitter part, but Becky knows I'm bitter. I don't know if Briggs says or not. Like, it's dumb. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, again, I understand that from a cost perspective from the state, it's cheaper and easier for them to regulate a smaller number of big businesses. I don't care. That's not the point. The point isn't to pick winners and losers. The point isn't to protect big players. The point is to, hey, we have a format in place. You got to collect the taxes. Here we go. As long as you can do these things correctly and you file the paperwork right, why should you have to have a certain minimum to play the game?
It'd be hard to find the numbers. Now, I know I've seen a couple of articles, that were talking about it before the ban came up or whatever, of how much, the billions of dollars, millions or hundreds of millions or whatever, that they were going to lose in tax revenue of these, small businesses either going under or going out of state.
Right, but that's only on the retail side. I mean, that's mostly on the retail side is what they're concerned about. It was what most of those numbers were based on too.
Right.
But yeah, on the wholesale side, I mean, there's only a handful. I don't even know how many there are anyway. But there's only a handful that are hemp specialists. Most of what's going to end up happening is the big liquor distributors are going to pick up, and 90% of what's going to be available in East Tennessee in the hemp game are going to go through Best Brands, Knox Bev, Libman Brothers, and those guys. At least in East Tennessee, as of right now, there's only one hemp guy that's already got his hemp license, and he's going. And he's gonna struggle because his core business is not in the edibles game, but he's certainly going to add more clientele locally through the edible part of the game. But also the state law lets him, he can still handle and ship flower and vape products. It just has to be out of the state. Like he can still wholesale into North Carolina or Virginia or Kentucky, and he can do it out of his warehouse here in Knoxville. That doesn't change for him. He just can't sell it to me in Knoxville. He can only sell it to, that shop down the street from where you are right now.
Right.
And so, it's weird. But we're getting there. We'll figure it out. So, anyway, yeah, I'm mad about it. I'm going to stay mad about it. And, we'll figure it out. I'll survive. All right. So, anyway, let's get weird. Nope, wrong button. Now, to be fair, I have to do some changes when I'm doing a phone call versus when I'm doing a regular show. So it's not true. Excuses. Actually, I'm just an idiot, but because my buttons are set up the same on the different channel as far as 1, 2, 3, but whatever. I'll blame it on that.
We got an Australian cockroach kingpin caught with 100,000 illegal insects and record bug busts.
Oh, okay. Please tell me more about why this man has 100,000 cockroaches in his possession.
Let's see here. It's county of a single breeder, the country's largest ever seizure in exotic invertebrates. Yeah, Madagascar. Hissing cockroaches and Dubai cockroaches were about $142,000.
I mean, I know there's a number of things that people normally keep as pets that eat cockroaches. That's one thing that our poor bearded dragon that we have has not had in his diet because Mom just won't let him come in the house.
Let's see here. Apparently the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, or an exotic sea species are likely being sold as a cost-effective reptile food because they're the hissing cockroaches. They're the largest cockroaches, I think, out there.
Yeah.
Because of their large size. I mean, fewer insects were needed.
Yeah. If you've got
officials urge pet owners to seek out crickets or wood roaches to feed their lizards.
I mean, so the concern is that in his breeding and selling of them, he's spreading this species that may end up becoming a general nuisance to the public at large because I
guess they're illegal to import into Australia.
I could see that.
They cannot be legally kept, bred, sold, no matter how they were obtained.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that for because what is the Outback cow or whatever, the cattle, Outback bull, is that what it's called?
I know they have issues with I think it's the cane toads.
Yeah, the big giant fuckers. Well, there's something about like there's a brush, maybe it's brush cow. Anyway, there's some story about how like it was one farm, one like cattle ranch. There was a big cattle ranch somewhere on the edge of whatever. That a fence went down in a storm or something like that, and like half of the pen got loose out in the outback, and it's been like 100 years now of these cows out there and breeding and whatever. And so it's like this new kind of sub-breed of what used to be a domestic cow that lives out in the bush, and apparently they're really mean, like really aggressive. They attack like trucks and stuff, or lorries. What do they call them in Australia? What's a truck? They have a funny name.
Lorry?
Lorry's English.
Well, there they do road train, which is just like a semi truck with like
7,
5 trailers.
8 trailers. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I could see, especially out there, being somewhat controlling of invasive species. As I look out my window at kudzu everywhere in this town, and speaking of invasive species, so it's not probably bad practice, but that's a lot of cockroaches. That's a lot of money.
Right.
But yeah, I'm gonna go
like
get
the
you
balls to try to smuggle in that much. It's not like
Well, he's breeding them, so he's not smuggling.
100.
He can't be smuggling in that many. He's bringing them in and then breeding them, and had 100,000 that he'd bred up to. I would think. I wouldn't think he'd sneak it in 100,000 of them.
No, I guess he was caught with them. I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you do one more because I don't want to go to bed tonight thinking about 100,000 hissing cockroaches.
So we talked about the baseball player with his hygiene,
with his weird toothbrush. Yeah,
hygiene. Yeah.
I almost asked my kid's dentist about it when we had a dental appointment last week. I almost asked him, "Have you ever heard anybody doing this?" Would
you advise this? Then you should catch him and be like, "Hey, do you not follow ADA guidelines? Because even the ADA came out.
Well,
so do not recommend this."
Now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually funny because he's got a little outbuilding in his dental practice, and he has a batting cage in it. So he's into baseball.
He has what?
He's into baseball.
Batting cages?
Yeah, he has a little batting cage in his North Shore over here, the one next to Twin Peaks. You know what I'm talking about? It's a little dental office, and then behind there's like a garage from whatever the previous occupant of the space was or whatever, and he put some batting cages in it. I talked to him about it, and apparently his kid was out there because his kid's out of school, and he just goes back there and plays in the batting cages all day while his dad's out there chopping people's teeth open.
Yeah, there was a local weird one. You see, I guess he announced it somewhere. Matt Damon announced that in preparing for a role, he bartended in Knoxville.
Yeah, I actually helped get to the bottom of that story. Maybe that's funny. Yeah, I saw that, and I was reading, and I was like, okay, I can see that. Apparently, it was back in the 90s, early aughts.
I thought it was like for an upcoming. That maybe he was there in the past like couple years or something.
No, it was because it was Patrick Sullivan's was one of the places. It was in the old city, and it was when Patrick Sullivan's was still there at least. Because I think I've told you about it before. There's a Facebook group called Knoxville Behind Bars. It's a private Facebook group of bar owners and bar employees. Mm-hmm. Generally used for, hey, this person's coming around, scamming this, that, and the other, or hey, we're hiring if anybody knows any bartenders that are looking for some part-time work or something like that. And, people share it around and whatever like that. But I shared that message into it and actually got a response from one of the people in the group that I actually know, funnily enough. And let me find it real quick, and I'll tell you what I was told on the inside. Let's see, here it is.
I remember a guy coming in and working for like 2 weeks and just leaving.
Lucille's. One person responded it was either Lucille's or Patrick Sullivan's, and then the individual that I know said it was Lucille's, and he's been in the bar game for a long time, so I believe him.
Wow.
And then an anonymous member
many moons ago.
Yeah.
It's cool little.
Yeah, he was talking on a podcast how he's moved to Knoxville for a month working as a bartender to pick up the accent for a role. And so,
I thought it had to do with like bartending skills or something.
And so it was, Yeah, apparently it was Lucille's down in the old city. Yeah. Anyway, that was an interesting little tidbit. That's funny that you brought that up, because I forgot that I had taken part in that, helping spread the word to see who remembers parts and pieces of it.
That's funny.
Now, I don't know that mine was particularly an effect on it, but I certainly was curious. I certainly was curious when I saw it too, because 30 years ago would have been a little before I was in the game, but not long before I was in the game. Here, I finally found him. Now that we're well past the prime of talking about it, but here I just sent you the picture of the raised interstate. No, I didn't.
Oh, the proposed drawings.
Yeah. No, I didn't, but I'll send them to you when we get off here. All right, man. Well, last call. Anything else?
Yeah, can't think of anything else.
All right, man. We'll have a safe trip back. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right, later.
Bye.
Okay, buddy, we did the podcast. Then we had call in. I had Larsen Jay call in. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of like the theoretical dream version of the podcast long term for me. I'd love to have more people, but more regular format where Sam and I are in the room and they call in and talk about whatever the thing is for a couple minutes on our nightly, our weekly chats, and have many random local contributors. But anyway, that was the idea. That's the premise that we were trying to do. So, almosthuman@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go to the website, almosthuman.com. Check out what we got going on there. What are your favorite podcasts? We're available on all of them. Like, friend, text us your friends, do what you can do to support the show. And we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And Sam and I will be back next week for a regular episode of Thanks, guys.